So good evening everyone. So rains, still you made it good. Right, so we are going to continue with the EIC administration, and it's the most boring topic, right? Thankfully not many questions are also asked from it. So therefore first is police administration. So therefore in the police administration it is Cornwallis. During his time period he brought a Cornwallis code that related to in 1793 to the code aspect, but also on the police side. So he is famous for what you call as Daroga system. Daroga system is basically you make a thana of 30 square miles each, and in each thana there is going to be a thanedar, that is Daroga. So therefore what he did, he viewed Zamindar purely as an agrarian capitalist. So therefore since Zamindar is now a businessman under the Permanent Settlement Act of 1793, so why should a businessman have any kind of police role? So he took away the police duties of the zamindars, which were there since the Mughal time period, and he stationed darogas. So therefore at the district level there is going to be district magistrate. Initially he brought a superintendent of police, but later on that SP was removed. So therefore ultimately after updation the system of Cornwallis is that at the district level you have district magistrate or district collector, and below him you have darogas, right, who are basically thanedars, right. However, that resulted in what you call as daroga zamindar nexus, because the zamindars, they paid bribe to the darogas, and then the zamindars continued to maintain their lathials, that is private army, and they were using them to extract high rents, illegal abwabs from the peasants. And therefore in that sense one can say that daroga zamindar nexus also contributed to the peasant revolts which took place after 1793, right. So that is pre-1857 revolts which are taking place in Bengal, right. So therefore that is the key highlight which is there. When William Bentinck came, so it was during the time period of William Bentinck that superintendent of police was removed, and again district magistrate, and under him darogas. So therefore when Cornwallis, he brought superintendent of police and below darogas, but ultimately William Bentinck 1828 to 1835, so therefore he removed the SP and he is bringing district magistrate. So IAS officer is also IPS officer under Bentinck, that is from 1828 onwards, right. So that is the key highlight during this time period of the police administration. Later on after 1857 it was further changed. We'll discuss that when we discuss the Indian Police Act of 1861, right. Next that you have is judiciary. So in judiciary the first system was brought by Warren Hastings, right. So Warren Hastings in 1772 he ended the dual government, right. So therefore he brought a system whereby at the district level there was going to be, if I draw quickly, so therefore it would be at the top level it is Sadar Diwani Adalat in the civil matters. At the district level there used to be what you call as your Diwani Adalat, Sadar Nizamat Adalat, and then Nizamat Adalat, or also known as Faujdari Adalat. The laws which were used here are Hindu law for Hindus and Muslim laws for Muslims. Whenever Hindu law is used in cases of families of Hindus, so therefore there the judge will be a Pandit, right, initially, right, but and muftis, they were the judges. When Warren Hastings came, so here he made the district collector the judge, right. Later on he removed that thing and brought separation of power, but initially DC used to be the judge also, right. DC is equal to DJ initially. Here, because law and order was considered sensitive, so here the qazis and muftis, they continued to be the judges at the district adalat level under the supervision of the district collector. So therefore that was the system which was brought by Warren Hastings initially. Later on he removed these district, these are removed, and 18 mofussil courts were set up, all under British officers. 18 mofussil courts plus separation of power was brought. That is, if you're a district collector, you cannot be the judge also, right. So this was the change which was brought by Warren Hastings later on, right. So therefore that is what he is doing. Then once Cornwallis comes, so Cornwallis does not want any kind of Indians in senior positions, because the ideology of Cornwallis is that he is authoritarian, right. So first of all he ends these what you call as mofussil courts, and he again brings back he brought district courts, you can call them Diwani Adalats also, and second he also brought city courts. That is what he is doing. Plus, at the center level, he is creating a new hierarchy. That is 4 provincial courts of appeal. So Bengal was divided into 4 divisions. These 4 divisions, if you begin from the left, so on the left hand side it was Patna, that is Bihar. Then you move towards right, it is Murshidabad. Further right, Calcutta. Further right, Dhaka. So therefore Bengal was divided into 4 divisions, and these are 4 provincial courts of appeal. Appeals from district court and city courts will be heard by the 4 provincial courts of appeal. What was the reason? Well, since Governor General was the head of Sadar Diwani Adalat, so Cornwallis wanted to reduce his workload. Right? In this particular case, he is ending the Nizamat Adalats, and here he is simply having 4 courts of circuit. What is a court of circuit? A court of circuit is a court which sits in different places in different time periods. So for example, here basically what is happening, that the High Court is itself going to the district level. Right? So you do not, if the High Court of Delhi is going to sit in Old Rajendra Nagar in the first week, in New Rajendra Nagar in the second week, in Shadipur in third week, right? In South Delhi in fourth week. So therefore, is there any district court requirement? There is no district court requirement because the higher court itself is coming to the ground level. So therefore, there were no district level courts, only 4 courts of circuit were there. Why? Circuit is basically like a network. So therefore, at different time periods, the court is sitting at different places. These 4 court of circuits were also for Patna. Then you have either move to Murshidabad, then you have Calcutta, then you have Dhaka. Right? So for the Indians, for the Firangis, Supreme Court at Calcutta is there, right? So Calcutta is like a division, bigger division, right? So therefore, this is what Cornwallis is doing. Apart from that, Cornwallis, he also brought a Cornwallis Code, right? So basically, he had introduced concentration of power. So students at times they get confused that sir, separation of power was brought by Warren Hastings or separation of power was brought by Cornwallis. Answer is both. Why? Because initially separation of power, that is district collector will not be DJ, district judge, right? That concept was brought by Warren Hastings. But once Cornwallis came, initially he ended that concept. So therefore in 1793 when he brought Cornwallis Code, so therefore he reintroduced the separation of power. So therefore both are, one is introducing and second one is reintroducing. That's where the student gets confused while reading the book. That's where exactly separation of power was brought by Hastings or it was brought by Cornwallis. It was brought by both. Why he is bringing that? Because he wants security of property to the agrarian capitalist zamindar. Right? So therefore, if zamindar is having his land, imagine that sunset clause has been applied in a malefied manner. Right? Imagine a hypothetical scenario that sun was about to set, zamindar was outside of the DC office ready to give money, but DC said now office is closed, and the next day the lands of the zamindar are up for auction. So therefore he will file a court case. If DC is equal to DJ, then the same person who is DC will be the judge also in that district. So therefore there will be no security of property because there is conflict of interest. So therefore that's why he, in the Cornwallis Code, he reintroduced the concept of separation of powers. So therefore, even in this small aspect, the why element becomes important, right? Apart from that, you can also interconnect, and this is where you beat the books also. You can interconnect the Charter Act of 1793 with the Cornwallis Code of 1793, 2 different chapters. But what is the hallmark of the Charter Act of 1793? Concept of civil law. That is all the laws which are to be used for governing Bengal, they were codified, right? So it would have Hindu laws for personal matters, Islamic laws for personal matters, Islamic laws for criminal matters, and for permanent settlement, that is Land Revenue ke liye Permanent Settlement Act of 1793. And so therefore they were combined in one. Written orders were made compulsory. These laws were to be available in vernaculars also, so that the people, they know what the law is. Why? Because another element of Cornwallis is that he is anti-corruption. So he was authoritarian, but he was anti-corruption, right? So these all features are part of the Cornwallis Code of 1793, right? So that is what he's bringing. He also brought a hierarchy of the courts. So Munsif Court under Indian officers, then Registrar Court under a European judge, then District Court. Basically the courts which are below the District Court, they have been mentioned here in the Cornwallis Code, right? So that is how the things are. but he abolished the office of Naib Nazim, that is Deputy Subadar. So therefore, because he does not want Indians in any senior positions, he is authoritarian, right? Law and order situation actually, initially when Warren Hastings came, so initially in 1772 he removed Deputy Subadar as Chief Justice of Sadar Diwani Adalat as well as Sadar Nizamat Adalat. But by 1774 the law and order situation did not improve. So in 1774 Muhammad Reza Khan was released from jail and he was made Chief Justice of Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So 1774 situation is Chief Justice of civil cases is Governor General and his council members, and Chief Justice of criminal cases is Deputy Subadar. Then comes Cornwallis in 1786 and he abolished the office of Deputy Subadar. So now who is the chief during Cornwallis? Cornwallis, normally remember one thing, that he was authoritarian. So therefore during the time period of Cornwallis there will not be any Indian in senior position. As simple as that. So therefore this is how we move ahead. This is a Cornwallis code, Munsif code, Registrar code, right, district code. This is how the things are. So at very lower level the Indian judge is present, but otherwise it is all Europeans, right? And if there is any appeal from the Sadar Diwani Adalat, then it will be London which will be hearing the cases. You have seen, for example, Privy Council, Dharma Sabha sending a case to Privy Council. With respect to civil services, so we know with regarding civil services that it is Cornwallis who is called as father of civil services. So, right, so why he is called father of civil services? Because there is a difference between a job and a service. Right? Today, the government of India can recruit you as IAS officer, well, as an officer, but maybe the government of India does not have a service. What is a service? Service is that before even joining, you know that you have a career. You know that after 5 years you will be here, after 7 years you will be here, after 20 years you will be here, right? The highest post that you can reach is cabinet secretary. You have a rough idea what will be your responsibilities if you join IA service, or if you join IP service, or if you join IR service. There are code of conduct that what are the do's and the don'ts for different officers at different levels, right? So proper rules are there, promotions are ascertained that okay, after this level this will be the promotion, right? So therefore that is what you call a career, right? So therefore you can have an unorganized set of officers. For example, if Vijay IAS recruits someone and then gives any work to him, no surety what will be my promotion, no surety that what will be my career after 5 years. That means job is there but service is not there, right? So therefore that's why he is called father of civil services, right? Because he organized the civil services into senior services, that is covenanted civil services, group A, and uncovenanted civil services, that is group B, right? So therefore that is what is being done by Cornwallis. So he is called father of civil services, right? He is authoritarian, so Indians are barred from high post from the very beginning, right? That we know. Also, he was a person who focused on meritocracy. So earlier Sifarisi Tattu used to come, right? That is, someone will lobby a British parliamentarian and then job will be given of IAS in India, but he ensured that no, only those who are meritorious, proper interview will be taken, and only those who are meritorious, they are given job. He was anti-corruption, so therefore he prohibited any kind of private trade, that is misuse of dastaks and all of that. Why are you doing corruption? Because the salary is low, so he increased the salaries also. Right? So he's increasing the salaries, he's giving a service, that's why he's called father of civil services, anti-corruption, that kind of personality is there. Then once you join the civil services, after that you do first thing what? You go to Labasna, right? So what was the Labasna? So in 1800, Wellesley set up Fort Williams College. Hey, this was Labasna till 1806, right? By the way, it is the era of Orientalism ideology-wise. Ideology-wise, till 1813, it is Orientalism. So therefore, you know what they used to study? They used to study Indian languages. Like if you are allocated Tamil Nadu cadre and if you are from North India, then you will be studying Tamil language. Or if you are from South India and you are allocated some northern state cadre, you will be studying that language. They used to study our languages. Why? Because they have to implement Hindu law. They have to implement Islamic law. Right? West-like laws, they will come from Charter Act 1833 onwards, when Law Commission was set up under Macaulay. So that's why what kind of training they will be getting in Fort Williams College, it will be about Indian languages, it will be about Indian laws, right? Then 1806, Haileybury College in London. So therefore that became Labasna. Abhi aap Missouri jaate hain, tab aap London jaate the, right? Charter Act 1813, right? It provided the office of civil servants, fine, that is a small thing, annual salary. But was the key highlight of Charter Act 1833? उसके बाद में आएगा. That is in 1833, the uncovenanted civil services were open to Indians, and the judicial positions were also open to Indians, right? So therefore, that is what is being done. Also, later on, it would be mentioned. It was decided that vernaculars will be used in the lower courts, right, and not just Persian. In the higher courts, English will be used and not Persian, right? So therefore, language-wise also, William Bentinck is changing these things, right? So therefore, these kind of scenarios are there. Well, इसमें शायद से नहीं है, but otherwise additional information. There was this northwest provinces, the half of Awadh, which was annexed in 1801 as part of subordinate alliance with Awadh. Right? It had Gorakhpur, it had Doab, it had Rohilkhand. So that was given a full province status in 1836, which is known as Northwest Province. Don't confuse it with Northwest Frontier Province. That is today in Pakistan, this Northwest Province is part of UP. Right? So therefore, so that people, they do not have to travel long distance to the Sadar Diwani and Nizamat Adalat in Calcutta, that is in Bengal. So therefore, William Bentinck created a SDA and SNA for Northwest provinces, right? So therefore, acha banda hai, banned sati also, right? So therefore, that is all what he is doing. 1853 exam was introduced. The first exam was conducted in 1855 in London. Because Indians were eligible to give this exam, therefore we say that now Group A services are also opened to the Indians, right? So therefore that is what is being done, right? Then we have land revenue policy under the British, right? So therefore understand the land revenue policy only in this particular format. The one element is that who will be the land owner, right? Second issue is assessment. Third issue is with respect to settlement. Fourth issue is landowner, assessment, settlement. These are the three key issues which are there. Then you can think about what is the impact, right? And then broadly we can discuss the reasons also, right? So therefore, और भी कुछ था क्या? Landowner, settlement, assessment, these are three. सर्वे तो वो असेसमेंट का पार्ट है. सो एनीवेज, फर्स्ट इज परमानेंट सेटलमेंट ऑफ 1793. सो वेयर इट वाज ब्रॉट इन बंगाल, ओडिशा, बिहार, नॉर्थ मद्रास, बनारस. सो इमेजिन दैट यू हैव फ्रेंड हुज नेम इज बॉब, right? So Firangi tha came to India, right? You were where? You were in North Madras. You told him to visit Banaras. He became so fond of Banaras that settled there permanently, right? So therefore Bob traveled from North Madras to Banaras and settled there permanently, right? So therefore that can be a mnemonic, right? So therefore where it is implemented in Bengal, Odisha, Bihar, North Madras and Banaras, right? Permanent settlement, right? Landowner, it was decided that Zamindar will be the owner of the land. Earlier Zamindar was only collector of revenue, now he is owner of the land, right? What is the reason to make it? First reason is what you call as landlordism. That is, Cornwallis is authoritarian. He said, I come from England. In England, there is a culture of big landlord. I'll create a big landlord in India. That big landlord will act as agrarian capitalist. And what does a capitalist work for? Profit motive. How do you earn profits? You make investment and then you have security of property and then you have return on investment. This is how I'll solve the food security problem and the land revenue income problem of the government. Plus, since Zamindars are the traditional leaders of the rural society, as a result, the friendship will be there between the leaders of the Indian society and the Britishers. It will bring political stability to the British rule, right? So it was a divide and rule policy also, right? So therefore, landlordism. Second reason is divide and rule. Who to divide? The Indian masses from their leaders. Leader is Zamindar. Remember, Churaman Jat, a Zamindar, right? He led a peasant revolt to create the Jat kingdom in 1695, right? So Zamindars are not all negatives. Even in 1857 revolt, the Zamindars, they provide leadership, right? So therefore, divide and rule, right? Good relations, right? And this worked also in 1857 revolt. The Zamindars of Bengal, they stayed loyal to the British, right? So divide and rule was the reason, right? Third reason you can mention, he wanted certainty of land revenue income. Why? Because land revenue was permanently assessed. So it does not matter whether rains are taking place or drought has taken place, the government will get a particular amount every year. Right? So therefore the government will have certainty of land revenue income. Right? So that is the primary reason that zamindar is made owner of the land. Now, assessment, so no surveys were done. Assessment was done at the time period of settlement. Whatever is in the pocket of the zamindar, that's 10 by 11. You apply the formula 10 divided by 11 multiplied by what is there in the pocket of the zamindar. What is in the pocket of the zamindar? The old land revenue, which was paid by the ryots to the zamindar, right? Imagine that is 66 rupees, right? So 100 kg is produced, 66 kg is paid by the ryots to the zamindar. In his pocket 66 kg is there. 10 by 11, that is 60 kg will be the land revenue. So 10 by 11 roughly comes out to be 91%, 90.9090%, something like this. But after application of this formula, whatever the result of the formula comes, that is fixed forever. You will not apply this formula the next year. So therefore, apply the formula at the time period of settlement. Whatever the result comes out, that will be the fixed amount, right? So therefore, the answer is fixed permanently. That's why it is known as permanent assessment. 10 by 11 of old land revenue. Old land revenue, ryots, they produce 100 kg, 66 kg, right? So therefore, that is the old land revenue. Old revenue was paid by ryot. New land revenue will be paid by the new landowner, that is the zamindar, right? So therefore, land revenue was assessed forever, even after 50,000 years, right? Even if today the Britishers were ruling, then the result of this formula would have been the land revenue amount, right? So therefore, the state is making a loss here in future because inflation itself will hurt the government. Settlement. This concept is not known to the people. Settlement means what? Settlement means negotiations are done with who? And who has the responsibility to deposit the money in the government bank account. So therefore, settlement means who deposits the money or who deposits LR. Now, in this particular case, the payer of LR was same as the depositor of LR. So therefore, settlement was done with zamindar. In goods and services tax, the taxpayer is different and depositor of tax is different, right? So in the GST, the settlement is done with shopkeeper, not with taxpayer. In income tax, settlement is done with taxpayer, right? So therefore, in Ryotwari and Mehlwari, settlement was done with owner of the land, right? So who has the responsibility to deposit? So settlement was done with zamindar. Negotiations are being done with zamindar, right? What is the impact of this permanent settlement? If you talk about ryot, so therefore ryot is rightless. His rights were not recognized. So he's rightless, he's landless, higher rents, illegal avabs, bedakli, right? No occupancy rights. So therefore, that is what is happening to the ryot because rent was not permanently assessed. Rent is paid by tenant ryot. Land revenue was permanently assessed, which is paid by landowner to the government, right? So therefore, over extraction will take place. Patta system will not be respected because in the patta system, the amount of money to be paid by ryot was recorded. So therefore, that can go. Zamindar, ultimately, he will emerge as loyal. In the short term, yes, high amount of auctions were there because of the sunset clause, but later on, the system stabilized. When auctions was there, then there was a rise of jotidars. Jotidars were those who were kind of like richest people of the village. They participated in the auctions and they became owners of the land, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. But ultimately, in the long term, yes, the government initially faced problem, but in the long term, the government had the certainty of land revenue. So therefore, certainty of LR, it did come for the government. So broadly, that is what is happening, and this permanent settlement is contributing to many of the revolts also. So therefore, that is your permanent settlement. In the case of your Ryotwari settlement, so in the case of Ryotwari, who is the owner of the land? As the name suggests, Ryot is the owner of the land. Why? Because here, Thomas Munro was from Scotland. So he said, in my Scotland, yeoman farmer, that is landowner cultivator, is the hero of the movies. So therefore, I am going to make the actual cultivator the owner of the land. That means his ideology is also playing a role, right? He's from Scotland. Plus, he was an Orientalist. So he said that in the ancient Indian times, Orientalism means rule India the India way. So he said that in the ancient Indian times, there was no middleman between the government and the cultivator. So why to have a middleman in the form of zamidar, right? Plus, zamidars were also unavailable. That is, no big zamidars were available. When no big zamindars are available, so what is the problem? Problem is that ultimately you want what? Ultimately you want a rich person who has deep pockets, who will invest huge amount of money in the land, plus who will be able to pay 10 by 11 in the first year itself. This is going to be coming out to be a very huge amount. If big zamindar is not available, that means a person with super deep pockets is unavailable in Madras. So therefore, how he will make big investments? And how he will pay 10 by 11, right? So therefore, that's why Ryot is made owner of the land, because no big zamindar is available. How do you create an agrarian capitalist here? You'll not be able to create. Another reason was to not have a middleman is that whatever are the profits of the zamindar, they can be taken by the state. So therefore, the government income will be much better if there is no zamindar as a middleman, right? So therefore, plus it is also divide and rule. How? In this case, you make friendship with the masses and you take away lands of the big landlords, right? So therefore, this is also a policy of divide and rule in that particular sense. Assessment was to be done on the basis of field survey. Why? Because when you make a small ryot owner of the land, so for him even 1% land revenue here or there will matter. So therefore, proper field surveys are to be conducted. Obviously, these field surveys were very, very bad initially, therefore leading to unjust land revenue demand, and as a result, later on, peasant revolts, etc., they took place. Right. So it is land revenue is not permanently assessed. It is revisable. It can be in percentage terms also. It can be in amount term also, and it is revisable also. That is, it is changeable also. Settlement, here also settlement is done with owner of the land, that is with the ryot. What is the impact? Well, ultimately there was loss of land. Why? Because there was poor field survey. Poor field survey led to unjust land revenue. When unjust land revenue is there, then ownership of land was conditional. There is a term which is used, proprietary rights in land. What is the meaning of the word property rights and difference with proprietary rights? Today all of us have proprietary rights, meaning land ownership, it is conditional. If we pay our taxes, then we have ownership of land. That is called proprietary rights. If we do not pay our taxes, the government can auction our property. For example, income tax can attach your property. So therefore today we have proprietary rights, right? Property rights means absolute property rights. No one can take away your land ever. Conditional property rights are called proprietary rights, right? So that's why it is mentioned that zamindar was now given proprietary rights because sunset clause is there. Here also, if you do not pay land revenue, then in the auction, your lands will be lost. Second option is that you take loan from money lender, but loan will be at very high interest rate because government did not regulate the interest rates. And ultimately, when you're not able to pay the EMI, then there will be loss of land to the money lender. That means government gave lands from one hand, but ultimately took away the lands from the other hand, right? So therefore, in this particular scenario also, the ryot will be unhappy, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. In the case of the Mehalwari system, in this, from the perspective of prelims, the field survey will be done by a particular officer in charge. So therefore, in this particular case, for example, Pringle, right? He was one of the officer who was in charge. So R.K. Pringle, he did one. Apart from that, the second officer who was there was what you call as just 1 second. Another officer was there. His name was just 1 second. Wingate settlement. That happened in Bombay. So Wingate and Goldsmith. So Wingate, Goldsmith, Pringle. These are the names which are associated with Ryotwari, right? In Bombay survey system, right? And Mackenzie, right? It is a name which is associated with Mehalwari. So M for Mackenzie, M for Mehalwari, right? So this is how you can think about it, right? So in the case of इसको हटाना ही पड़ेगा फिर. Anyways, in the case of महलवारी, so महलवारी के केस में, अच्छा, so रियतवारी was a B grade scam, right? Scam B. Sindh, Coorg, Assam, Madras, Bombay. Scam B. रियतवारी was a scam. देखो कैसे लूटा गया रियत को. एक हाथ से जमीन दिया, दूसरे लिए स्कैम है ना ये. SCAMB. सिंध, कुर्ग, असम, मद्रास, बॉम्बे. इट वाज अ बी ग्रेड स्कैम, राइट. महल, ताजमहल. ताजमहल, चाय, चाय, राइट. सो देयरफॉर यू आर हैविंग अ कप ऑफ टी, राइट, इन अ महल, है ना, वाह ताज, राइट, दिस काइंड ऑफ सिनेरियो. सो देयरफॉर C, U, P, central provinces, united provinces, Punjab, right, Mehelwari, right. So in the case of Mehelwari settlement, which was implemented in C, U, P, central provinces, united provinces, Punjab, it was a hybrid. So therefore you can think that in most of the cases, the Riyat was made owner of the land, but in some of the cases Zamindar was made owner of the land, right. So it is a hybrid where Riyat is made owner of the land, right, where Riyat is made owner of the land. Their settlement was done with village headmen. Settlement was done with village headmen, who you call Lambardar, right, that is community head. So here you see interesting scenario is there, that settlement is not done with the taxpayer, right. So why this was done? To respect the village autonomy, right. So therefore he is going to, the village community is going to decide how much who is going to pay. The government is not going to tell each person how much he is going to pay. The community will be told that you have to pay 1 lakh rupees, then the community will arrange. And head of the community, that is Lambardar, he will pay. If there is any default, then the government will inquire who did not pay. Whose name comes out, his lands will be auctioned. Right? So therefore that is what is happening. In the case of here, his settlement was done with Zamidar himself. Right? So with respect to settlement also, Mehelwari is a hybrid. Right? Settlement also, Mehelwari is a hybrid. Assessment, well here field survey is going to be there. So for example, one field survey was done by RM Bird, right? Later on another field survey was done by Mackenzie. So these are nothing but officer in charge, because doing field survey is very, very complex exercise. So therefore the officer who designs the survey, right? Because it is a very tough task, right? So therefore on their basis, the name of the Mehelwari settlements, they also come in, right? So therefore that is your Mehelwari. There is nothing complex in Mehelwari. Right, that is the only complex aspect which is there, right? So permanent settlement, Riyatwari. Riyatwari technically around 1790s, Alexander Reed experimented it. In 1801, Thomas Munro as senior officer implemented it in Madras by convincing the court of directors that please remove permanent settlement from Madras. That is why permanent settlement is there in Madras, North Madras. Why? Because initially it was implemented in Madras. When Thomas Munro convinced the court of directors in London, then from rest of Madras it was removed, right? That's why. How Governor General of Bengal is able to implement permanent settlement in Madras? Because in the Pitt's India Act 1784, he can now give orders to governors, not in just matters of war and peace, but also in matters of revenue, right? So there the Pitt's India Act is also interconnected, right? He stayed here till 1807, then he went to England. So then the Riyatwari was removed. When he became governor of Madras in 1820, then he reintroduced Riyatwari, and then it was never removed. So therefore Riyatwari was implemented 2 times in Madras, once from 1801 to 1807, then from 1820 onwards, right? Impact wise of Riyatwari, there was huge amount of torture, right, revealed by Madras Torture Commission report of 1855. Torture was done by who? By the district collector and his subordinates, right? His subordinates were Indians, they were Mirasidars, right? Mirasidars, they were corrupt, they had judicial powers, they had police powers, because there was no separation of power in the case of Riyatwari, right? So they were overpowerful. Why there was no separation of power in the case of Riyatwari? Because when you have very small property owners, then huge case burden will be there at the district court, right? So therefore the government thought that we cannot have separation of power here. Let DC and his subordinates act as judge on the ground itself, so the case burden of the district courts, it comes down, right? So in the case of Riyatwari areas, separation of power was not followed, right? that is district collector could not be district judge. So fine, in the map we show these things. These are all the features which I just discussed, right? Reason for introduction, right? All of these things they are mentioned here, right? Impact, what is the impact in the case of Mehelwari? Impact will be like permanent settlement in those areas where Zamindar is the owner of land, and impact will be like Ryotwari in those areas where Ryot is the owner of land. One small prelims aspect is there. In the case of Mehelwari, the rights of tenants, Mehelwari is implemented from 1822. The rights of tenants were respected in the law from day one, but poor implementation of law was there, because of which high rents and illegal abubs they continued, right? For example, UP Kisan Sabha movement during non-cooperation movement, our Kisan Sabha movement. Why? High rents, illegal abubs. That means in the law, rights were there, but poor implementation of law was there. Right? So from the perspective of prelims, rights of tenants were not respected in the permanent settlement by law, but they were respected in the Mehelwari, where in those areas of Mehelwari where Zamindar is owner of land. Right? So legally that protection it was there. Right? So that is what is there. So that is, then we come to British policy towards the Indian states. So stages of colonialism. First stage is like pre-industrial revolution stage. In the first stage, the East India Company is also not very confident, because it is militarily not very strong, right? So therefore, in the first stage, it is basically you want to maximize your trade profits. So it is mercantile capitalism which operated. East India Company had monopoly over British trade with India. It wanted to have monopoly over India's international trade. That's why they are fighting against the Portuguese also in 1612, 1620, fighting against the Dutch in 1650s, fighting against the French in the three Carnatic Wars, 1746-48, 49-54, 56-63, right? So, and because of the Battle of Plassey, and then because of Battle of Buxar 1764, yes, they were able to take over Diwani of Bengal. So they were able to take over another source of income, that is land revenue income. They took over the government revenue. In the second stage, it is happening from 1813 onwards. By the way, here subordinate alliance and these kind of things, they will also come in, because Wellesley is bringing subordinate alliance from 1798 onwards. Second stage, so now in Charter Act of 1813 ends the monopoly of the East India Company. So therefore now free trade begins. That is, other companies of Britain can also do business with India, because the Britishers, they have their modern machines. So therefore they do economic integration with England in the world. How it is done? It is very simple. How was India integrated with the world economy? So let's say this is Jharkhand, which is a source of raw material. This is an urban area where the rich Indians are there. So basically, and this is a port. So therefore build road, rail infrastructure, and the raw materials, they'll be going to the port. There a ship will be waiting, and it will take the raw materials to London. And then they will be going to a British factory. British factory will also be sending finished goods. Finished goods will also travel to this particular port, and here again a railroad infrastructure will be there, and the finished goods will be sold in the urban areas. So this is how the Indian economy is integrated with the world economy. It is nothing but drain theory, right? So that is what is happening. Plus we know that from 1813 onwards, for example, 1820 Ryotwari settlement comes, 1822 Mehelwari settlement comes. That's why new land revenue systems are also brought, as more and more territories are annexed by the Britishers. Then in the third stage, era of foreign investment started from 1860s, because by 1850 your industrial revolution it is done. So therefore, for example, in 1853 railways were begun. Telegraph network was started by Dalhousie in 1850s. Like canals were started, for example, in Punjab canals were built. So therefore, foreign investments they begin. It is basically a business opportunity for the Britishers to invest money in India and to have benefits. Development of railway, post, telegraph, and banking system also. So ultimately the Jagat Seths were replaced by Firangi banks, right? Then we have revolt of 1857. So if you talk about the revolt of 1857, I need to provide you some rough idea regarding the pre 1857 revolts also, some rough idea, right? Fine, these are the names which are there. Ultimately, but what is the issue which is there? What is the grievance of the common man? Common man does not want to be MP, MLA. Common man wants basically two things, and that is what: first is law and order security, and second is right amount of money should be available to the common man so that he is able to feed his family. That is the primary focus of the common man. Now, that means what is the primary issue for the common man of India? Common man of India at that point of time is agrarian economy. So therefore, common man is the Ryot, right? And land revenue systems, they are his major concern, right? He always had occupancy rights. That is, no one removed him from the land that he cultivated. And but the British land revenue systems, in the case of permanent settlement, they are made a tenant, right? High rents are there, illegal abwabs are there, right? Lack of occupancy rights is there. In the case of Ryotwari, yes, initially they are made landowners, but because of improper field surveys, high land revenue is there. When high land revenue is there, two options are there. Either you allow your lands to be auctioned to the highest bidder, or you take a loan from the money lender to pay the land revenue. Ultimately, you will not be able to pay the EMI because the interest rates are very, very high. So therefore, the money lender will go to the police, will show that this is the property which the Ryot had mortgaged. He has not paid my loan back. Please send police. I need to take over the lands. Right? So landlessness became the primary reason, and oppressive land revenue and oppressive interest rates by the moneylenders were the primary reason of all of these movements where the peasants participated. Now, at times, the peasant revolts, they were led by the peasants themselves. For example, the Snami sannyasis, Madari fakirs in the sannyasi revolt. Similarly, in the case of, for example, Faraizi revolt, Pagalpanthis, Wahhabi movement, right? Kuka movement. Their leadership was provided by the Ryots themselves. Then there are another kind of peasant revolts which are classified as civil uprisings. These are those revolts where leadership was provided by the traditional Indian elite. Who are the traditional Indian elite? The kings whose kingdoms have been taken away. The Mansabdars, when kingdoms are taken away, so Mansabdar will not be able to be a Mansabdar, right? Or Zamidar, whose lands have been taken away in cases of Ryotwari and in cases of Mahalwari, where land has been given to the actual cultivator, right? So therefore, that is the issue. For example, one example is Diwan Velu Thampi's revolt in 1809. So why? In 1805, subordinate alliance was signed. As part of the subordinate alliance, a British resident is stationed. Right? So what is the summary of subordinate alliance? Just first एक line में बताऊंगा. I'll not go deep into it. But there's a formula of subordinate alliance. Subordinate alliance is POIR. That is POIR plus PORF plus EIC military and subsidy. EIC military and subsidy plus foreign policy, right? It is taken over by the British. Policy of indirect rule, POIR. It basically means what? That there will be a puppet ruler who will be controlled by a British resident, right? So therefore, if British resident controls the puppet Indian ruler, then who will be losing? Diwan, that is Pradhan Mantri Velu Thampi. His political status will be coming down. So therefore, that is his grievance, why he is giving leadership to the peasants and to the Nayar troops. Why the Nayar troops are participating? By the way, policy of ring fence means a military alliance. Military alliance between East India Company and the state who assigned subordinate alliance. Now, Nayar troops revolted. Why? Because if EIC military is stationed, that means the Indian sepoys, right, of that particular state, they will lose their jobs because East India Company will bring, maybe from other regions, they will bring the sepoys. So therefore, Nayar troops, they had lost their jobs. That's why they had their own grievances. So they supported Diwan Velu Thampi, right? Foreign policy, right? So fine. And Ryots, they are unhappy. Why? Because subsidy amount is very high. So therefore, high amount of land revenue is taken from the Ryots. So Ryots are unhappy because of subsidy. Nayar troops are unhappy because state's military is disbanded and EIC military is stationed, and the elite is unhappy because of the British resident establishing his indirect rule. So therefore, in this particular sense, subordinate alliance of 1805 played an important role in this particular civil uprising. This is link between subordinate alliance and peasant revolts, which the books they do not tell you, right? But if you apply logic, logic is there, right? So therefore, this is very representative kind of a revolt which is there, right? So broadly, these are the issues which are there. Okay, fine. These movements, etc., we'll discuss later. So the revolt of 1857. So it is said that UPSC has asked a mains question also that 1857 revolt was a result of 100 small and big rebellions which happened in the first 100 years of the British rule. That is from 1757 to 1700, from 1757 to 1857. By the way, in which year the if in prelims they ask in which year the EIC rule began in India? 1757, 1765, 1772, 1783. Which year? 1765. Wrong answer. In 1765, they got power to rule, but they did not begin ruling. Direct government in Bengal was established in the year 1772. So 1757, they militarily dominated Bengal. 1765, they got power to rule Diwani. But they did not. Muhammad Reza Khan continued to be the Diwan of the East India Company. Indian officers, they continued to do everything. It was in 1770 that Great Bengal famine happened, because of which the incomes of the company came down drastically. And then in 1772, Mr. Warren Hastings, as governor of Bengal Presidency of East India Company, took over Diwani as well as Nizamat. Diwani was legally already under them, but now you will have district collector. Before 1772, there was no Firangi district collector on the ground. Right, so they got power to rule in 1765, but they began ruling in 1772. This is how in prelims they check your basic, curiosity. That which student was curious, right? So that is what is there. Anyways, right. So let us see what are the reasons for this particular revolt. So economic causes we have already discussed. Economic causes are basically, for example, if you look at the economic causes, if you begin with the riots. If you begin with the sepoys, because what was 1857 revolt? 1857 revolt is equal to sepoy mutiny plus civil rebellion, right? Civilians like you and me, we rebelled, so that is civil rebellion. Sepoys, when they fired upon their seniors, so that is called sepoy mutiny. So what was the economic grievances of the sepoys? So the Britishers, they played use and throw. That is, with the help of the Indian sepoys, they conquered the whole of India. That is either annexed 63% of India, or subordinated 37% of India, right? 63% of India was British India, where the Britishers, they ruled. 37% of India was where subordinate alliance was there, right? And now they adopted a use and throw policy, and therefore they reduced their salaries. They reduced their bhatta. Bhatta for service abroad was ended. Otherwise, if you're in Bengal army and you are stationed in Sindh, for example, so therefore you will be getting a per day allowance or some extra money that you will be getting. That was taken over, right? Apart from that, the maximum rank, right, which a Indian could reach was much less as compared to a EIC officer, right? So therefore, the maximum rank that the Indian could reach was Subedar, right? That could give just 60-70 rupees of salary, right, per month, right? So therefore, racial discrimination in the domain of economy, right, that is between Indian sepoy and a Firangi sepoy. So that element was also there. So that's why the sepoys are revolting. Now, in the civil rebellion, who is providing leadership? The Indian elites, right? So therefore, in that sense, 1857 revolt, first subpoint, was a peasant revolt. Second subpoint was a peasant revolt and a civil uprising, right? So how do you call it? It was civil uprising, because those peasant revolts where leadership is provided by the elites, they are classified as civil uprising in the books. And those peasant revolts where leadership is provided by the riots, that is simply called peasant revolts, right? So it was a civil uprising. Civil, because rebellion and uprising, any which way they are synonyms. 1857 revolt is equal to sepoy mutiny plus civil rebellion, that is civil uprising. So leadership was provided by the elites. Elites, they can be divided into parts. For example, Rajas and their Mansabdars. So whenever annexations were done, for example, Dalhousie did annexation on grounds of doctrine of lapse, है ना? भगत संभल झाड़ियों में उड़ता सा नाग. भगत संभल झाड़ियों में उड़ता सा नाग. Bhagat, was annexed, Sambhalpur was annexed, Udaipur was annexed, Satara was annexed, Nagpur was annexed. Bhagat, Sambhal, Jhansi, Ud, Udaipur, Satara, Nagpur were annexed by Dalhousie as per doctrine of lapse. वो नाग का नाम डलहौजी था, ठीक? Right? So therefore, doctrine of lapse is being applied. So therefore, they are losing their social status. They are losing their economic status also. Right? So economic status is also element. Right? Apart from that, for example, zamindars, they lost their lands because in UP, which system is applied? Mehalwari. In Mehalwari, hybrid is there with respect to land ownership. That's why in most of the cases, zamindar will be losing his lands to the ryot. Right? So therefore, these zamindars who are losing their lands, that is zamindars of this particular area. Here, ryot is the owner of the land. Zamindars of these areas, they are unhappy because they have become landless. Their name was Talukdar. Talukdar is nothing but intermediary zamindar of UP is called Talukdar. Intermediary zamindar means big zamindar. Right? They had their own private forts also. They had their own private armies also. At times, people they used to call them rajas also. Nowadays, also annually they meet and they remember their glorious days of the past. I saw news in Indian Express last year. Right? So anyways, so therefore elites, they have their economic grievances. Plus, one elite is happy. His name is moneylender. That's why in the 1857 revolt, not just the British, but moneylender was also targeted. Right? So therefore, this also can form part of prelims question. Right? Because moneylender is gaining from the system high land revenue. What about the ryots? Well, those ryots who are here, that is where zamindar is the owner of land, their high rents, illegal abubs, and those ryots who are here, their landlessness, either they have lost land in the government auctions because of high land revenue, or they have lost lands to the moneylender because of high interest rates. Right? So therefore, that is what is happening. UP is what? UP is northwest provinces plus Awadh. So northwest provinces, Mehalwari was applied. Later on in Awadh, summary settlement was there. What do you mean by summary settlement? That is, summary is opposite of the word detail. So here, though no field survey was done. Randomly people were told, you pay this much, you pay this much, you pay this much. Right? A prelims question gets generated, by the way, from there. Overall, why was Awadh annexed? Awadh was annexed on grounds of maladministration. Britishers, they felt that land revenue is so high that people are about to revolt. Overall, in 1856, when Awadh was annexed, the Britishers, they asked overall for lesser land revenue from the people of Awadh. That means before 1856, if 100 rupees were being charged to the people, after 1856, only 90 rupees were charged. So why did the revolt took place? I just give the answer. Summary settlement. Summary settlement में क्या है? You people, you pay 70 rupees. Right? You people, re baba, 70 rupees. Britishers are very oppressive. We should ideally pay only 60 rupees or 50 rupees. Right? You people, you pay only 40 rupees. You people like, Firangi is stupid. Firangi does not know anything. Ideally, we should pay 70. He is asking only for 40. Right? The problem is not total. Total, they demanded less. Prelims के हिसाब से, right? A question can be generated. Problem was summary settlement. That is lack of any proper field survey. Right? So this field survey was primary reason for any kind of revolt in Ryotwari and Mehalwari areas. Right? Field survey. Because field survey is the root cause of high land revenue. Right? So therefore, here the ryots are having the issue of landlessness. Political causes, as we have discussed, that elites, right? So therefore, rajas, they are losing their kingdoms, nobles, they are losing their kingdoms, plus sepoys, they have a sense of regionalism. Awadh sepoys who were participants of the Bengal army, they felt that at least you could have let my Awadh continue to be independent. Why did you have to take over my Awadh also? With my help, with my blood and sacrifice, you conquered whole of India. You could have at least left Awadh. Right? So therefore, sepoys, they had a sense of attachment with respect to Awadh. Socio-religious causes, again, if we talk about the sepoys, so therefore, Christian missionaries were present, which did in the barracks. Barracks are the places where the sepoys live, right? So therefore, they are trying to, since 1813, onwards, the Christian Missionaries Charter Act 1813 opened the grounds, right? So Christian missionaries are present in the barracks. Second is what you call as this rumor about, for example, atta. That is, they have put cow and pig bone dust in the atta. Third is, it is not totally rumor, truth was also there in it. That is cow fat and pig fat in Enfield rifles cartridges, which were to be bitten off by mouth. So Enfield rifle. So therefore they are there. Plus Britishers, they wanted to promote uniform culture. So therefore they, for example, they did not allow people to wear their religious symbols, right? Hindus and Muslims, they cannot wear their religious symbols, right? So therefore uniform culture is another reason why they are trying to. So therefore this hurt the sepoys. For the civilians, the issue is again Christian missionaries. Religious conversions used to take place under police protection. Then they are using law to bring social reforms. So social reforms by law. For example, this banning of sati in 1829. So banning of sati is a good thing, but Indians are wondering why the Britishers are so disturbed whether we have sati or not, right? Do they want to hurt our rituals? Do they want links between us and our religion to be broken or weakened so that later on we convert to Christianity? Because how do we get to know that we are true Hindu, true Muslim, true Sikh, true Isai? If we are following our rituals, then we feel that we are very attached to our religion, right? So therefore they wanted to weaken the ties between, right? So as a, then they also in 1850 they brought something called a Lex Loci Act. Lex Loci Act, books they give wrong year at times, right? मतलब मेरे हिसाब से as per my research, removal of Religious Disabilities Act, removal of Caste Disabilities Act, removal of Religion Caste Disabilities Act, Lex Loci Act, all of the years is 1850 and not 1856. Right? In 1850 they said that despite conversion, a son will be able to have property rights of inheritance from his family. That means this will propagate conversion to Christianity. Right? So earlier you were ready to get converted, but your alibi was that if I convert, I will lose my father's property, so I am not converting. The Britishers, they removed this disability and they said that even after conversion, a son will be having right to property of his father. That is inheritance. This basically escalated conversions to Christianity. And then in 1856, Hindu Widow Marriages Act was brought. Right? So therefore again, we are thinking that the Britishers, they are hurting our religion. Right? So that is what is happening, because later on in social reforms it is mentioned in the books that ultimately Orthodox Hindus, that is who were against widow remarriage, they were able to win the Shastra based debate. That is, they were able to prove with the help of scriptures that Hinduism does not allow widow remarriage. Right? So therefore that's why we felt that they are interfering with our religion. So therefore civilians, we felt, plus these people, the Britishers, their only dharma is money. So therefore they wanted to take land revenue from temples, from mosques also. Some communities were religious communities, right? There they used to enjoy revenue free tenures. For example, Madari Fakirs, in the Snami Sannyasis and Madari Fakirs revolt in Bengal, the Britishers, they said everyone has to pay land revenue, right? So therefore rent or revenue free tenures, they were ended. So therefore all of us, they felt that these Britishers are very adharmic, that the British rule is very immoral. Who takes tax from God? Right? So the British rule is very, very immoral, and we felt that our religion is under threat. Other causes may, most of the causes have been covered like this. Other causes may, for example, you can mention the British equality before law. This hurt the social status. Imagine that I am an intermediary zamindar, right? And earlier, for example, if I shot someone, so fine, I'll give some blood money. That okay, I got angry today. You take some money, right? But now equality before law is there. So imagine what will happen to me if the police comes to my house and they take me like this, right? So all of you riots are laughing at me, see? Right? So therefore loss of social status is there. Now the Britishers, they say equality before law, rule of law. Right? So therefore this is going to act also as a grievance, loss of social status, loss of military status. For example, the private forts of zamindars were demolished. Right? So therefore all of these, the whole Indian society is getting this. For example, they started telling Bahadur Shah Zafar that Mr. Zafar, you will now call yourself prince. Since everyone knows that since 1739, 1740, you are no emperor. right? So therefore, and ये लाल किला से निकलो, go to this smaller Kutub, right? Kutub institutional area is there, na? Behind JNU, behind IIT, there is Kutub, right? Go there, leave Lal Killa, right? So therefore, this is how these people, they hurt our symbolic authority also. So therefore, these are the reasons of the 1857 revolt. So that is discussed here. These are the trajectories that, okay, everyone knows that it was Mangal Pandey who first revolted. After that, Meerut Sepoys on May 11, they reached Delhi, forced Bahadur Shah Zafar, right? He was 80 years of age, right? Forced him that he should become leader. So therefore, the initiative was of the Riyat, right? So these are the different areas. For example, in Kanpur, Nana Sahib was adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II, right? He also had a personal grievance that the pension was discontinued because under the doctrine of lapse, the rights lapsed. Right to rule is one of the right. So if you are an adopted son, you will not have right to rule and your state will be annexed by the British. But what about other rights? Other rights also lapsed if you are an adopted son. So Maharashtra was annexed in the Third Anglo-Maratha War, 1817-19. Here, the right to pension lapsed because once Bajirao II died, Nana Sahib is adopted son. Right? So in the doctrine of lapse, not just from the perspective of Prelims, in the doctrine of lapse, not just right to rule a territory lapse, but other rights also lapsed if you are adopted son and not a biological legal heir. Right? So therefore, from here we get a prelims question. Kunwar Singh of Jagdishpur, he was a zamindar. His lands were taken over because he could not pay the land revenue. He is from Bihar. So in Bihar, which permanent settlement is there? Na? Bengal, Odisha, Bihar. Right? Lucknow, Begum Hazrat Mahal. So she is like wife of the Nawab. Right? Then you have Delhi. So you have Bahadur Shah Zafar. Obviously, he is 80 years of age. So therefore, General Bakht Khan was there. Right? In Bareilly is the capital of Rohilkhand. So it was Kingdom of Rampur because in 1774 rest of Rohilkhand was taken over. So it is a very small kingdom. There Khan Bahadur Khan, right? Double Khan Afghan. Khan Bahadur Khan, Dobar Khan Afghan, right? So that is how you can remember Rohilkhand Afghans, right? So therefore these are there. Then Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai, everyone knows, right? So therefore her adopted son was not accepted. Tatya Tope, Rani Lakshmi Bai and Nana Sahib, they were childhood friends. As per Veer Savarkar's book 1857 Revolt, Indian War of Independence, they were childhood friends. That's why I see Tatya Tope helped Rani Lakshmi Bai, right? So that is there. These are other leaders who are present, right? So fine. Reasons for failure of the revolt. So what are the reasons for the failure of the revolt? First reason, for example, Indians, we do not have technology. We did not have modern weapons. Only sepoys have modern weapons which they have looted or which have taken control of after doing mutiny. But the civilians, we do not have any kind of modern weapons. We are out there with swords, right? So therefore that became a major reason. Second reason was technology. We did not have access to telegraph network. Third reason was organization. We were not properly organized, but the British military, like we have options also, na? Public administration and management. Organization structure, it matters. So they had proper bureaucracy, they had proper hierarchy of military also, right? So organizationally, we were not well organized, right? So that was the reason. Then another element was support from the Royal Military. So in October 1857, the Royal Military arrived from Britain. So therefore that changed the things for the British in a very positive manner. Third thing is because of lack of communication, we could not help each other, right? So for example, this revolt is taking place in Kanpur, right? And the Britishers have arrived in Kanpur. Then other participants, they are not able to come to help of Kanpur. Why? Because modern communications is not available to us, right? Our leadership, yes, Bahadur Shah Zafar was the leader, but we were not acting as NATO. That is a joint military command, right? So therefore, they defeated us one by one. The Britishers, they never had the aukat to fight us collectively, right? Even where we came 50% collectively, the British rule collapsed in 1857. Here also, they did not fight us as one force. When they fought us as one force, they got defeated in 1947, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. So these are the primary reasons for the failure, plus lack of unity was there. Those zamindars whose lands were not taken away, because we know that Mahalwari is a hybrid system. So those zamindars who continue to be landowners, they did not join the revolt. Those the Indian princes, they did not join. That is the Indian rulers, they did not join. Right? They also had an issue. They were subordinated, so therefore they do not have their own militaries also. So therefore, usually the books they criticize the Indian rulers that they did not join, that they were fence sitters. Well, yes, they could have joined, but see, confidence will be relatively less because they do not have their own militaries. Right? But they could have supported their own sepoys who have revolted, but fine. They did not join. Zamindars, for example, Bengal was quiet, so therefore Zamindars of Bengal, they were loyal because of the permanent settlement, they did not join. Madras, well, in the case of Madras, Madras was quiet. Why? The only problem in Ryotwari is that land revenue is high. Otherwise, the Ryot is happy. Otherwise, the Ryot is happy. It is policy of divide and rule, have friendship with the masses. In 1855, when Madras Torture Commission report came, after that corrective measures were taken. Right? That means shit yaar. Had Madras Torture Commission report, थोड़ा और torture हो जाता है यार 2 साल और, है ना? Had Madras Torture Commission report not taken effect in 1855, probably good participation from Madras would have been there. Right? So Madras was quiet. In Bombay, Ryotwari is there. Ryots are relatively happy. In Punjab, Ryots are benefiting from canals which have been set up in 1850s. Right? So you see, from that particular perspective, modern nationalism was not properly present. Right? So as a whole of army did not revolt. Right? Why the whole of army did not revolt? Because inter-regional bonds were not there. Luckily for the Britishers, right, joint exercises were not being conducted between regional armies. Right. This is a recommendation of Peel Commission, which comes after 1857 revolt, that it is a good thing, have officer to officer level contact, so that when a war is to be fought, then the whole British Indian army can fight. But do not allow sepoy to sepoy contact. Right. So the Bombay army, the Madras army, the kind of stayed neutral. Sikh army actively supported the British. Right. Why? They were taking revenge. Because in 1849, the same Awadhi sepoys had helped the Britishers in annexation of Sikh state. Now when it is your Awadh, right? So therefore the Sikh princes, they took revenge, right? So therefore that was the idea, right? So that's why proper unity was not there. That's why so whole of India did not revolt. Bengal army size was 50% of the size of the British Indian army, so we can say that 50% of the army did revolt. Right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Changes introduced after the act. So East India Company, like there is this famous statement now, karma is a dash. Right? So like East India Company blamed Nawab of Awadh for bad governance and annexed Awadh. Similarly, now British state blamed East India Company for bad governance of British India and removed East India Company. Karma strikes back just in 1 year, right? So Government of India Act 1858 was brought and EIC rule was ended. However, Indian symbolic authority was also ended. Now Bahadur Shah Zafar is the last Mughal emperor and legally the Mughal rule ended. And Queen Victoria, she will be the Empress of India, right? She took the title Kesari Hind illegally in 1858. She used it. Legally, Royal Titles Act was brought by the British Parliament in 1876, right, which allowed her the title of Kesari Hind. In 1877, Lytton held Delhi Darbar, where Queen Victoria got coronated, corona, TED, coronated. She got corona ho jata, अच्छा हो जाता वहीं करो. Right? So the Queen Victoria got coronated. So therefore, that is how the things are. Right? So prelims question can be designed on Kesari Hind also. Why? Wherever confusion lies, there a prelims question lies. Actually started using it from 1858, Kesari Hind. Legally can use it from 1876. Ceremony, so that she is able to properly use it, 1877 Delhi Darbar. At a point of time when famines were taking place in India. Right? In 1876, 1.2 crore Indians died in Madras because of famine, and Mr. Lytton had money to spend on this pomp and show. Right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Sabki government job lag gayi. Right? Earlier, everyone was a private employee because rule of East India Company was there, so everyone got a government job. right? So therefore, it was not much change, only names changed. For example, in London, President of Board of Control was now to be called Secretary of State for India. A new post was created. Board of Control was ended. India Council or Council of India having 15 members was created. So therefore, in London, now it is Secretary of State for India. Think of it like Minister for India, and under him, India Council. In India, the Governor General of India is now to be called Governor General of India and Viceroy, right? Both posts are there. GG is also a post and Viceroy is also a post. Books, they confuse you when they say GG was replaced by Viceroy. No, Viceroy was added, right? So it is Viceroy and GG. Because look at the word governor. Governor means ruler. So as governor, he was ruler of India. That is British India. That is 63% of India. He will make policies, he will make laws, and he will implement them. Viceroy. Vice, what is the job of vice captain? It is to act as captain on the ground if the captain is not available on the ground. So because the royalty was not available on the ground in India, royalty was in London. So therefore, on the ground in India, the viceroy will act as vice captain, that is representative of crown in India, right? So therefore, when crown wants to talk to the princely states, then viceroy will talk on behalf of the crown, right? And when Britain wants to make laws and policies for India, then he will remove the quote and here Governor General will be written. So he'll be signing as Governor General in British India, right? So as Viceroy, he is representative of the royal, that is Viceroyal, right? And as Governor General, he is ruler of British India. So both the posts are there. That's why later on they say that C. Rajagopalachari was first Indian Governor General, right? Mountbatten was first Governor General of partitioned India. Wavell Plan 1945 said that in the council, Viceroy Executive Council, all should be Indians except two, Commander-in-Chief and Governor General. So therefore student get confused. Yaar, Governor General was not there since 1858. Why the books are suddenly using Governor General? Why? Because both existed. In fact, some of the sources say that in 1904 to 1905, for 1 year, two separate people were Viceroy and GG. Right? If you do some Google research, they were two separate posts, always held by one person. Right? So as Viceroy, he is representative of Crown. As Governor General, he is ruler of India or Pradhan Mantri of India, practical sense. Right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Indian Army was reorganized. So the Britishers, they are learning from the Peel Commission. Right? So Peel Commission, it recommends that the things which happened good for us, repeat them, and things which happened bad for us, don't repeat them. Things which happened good, inter-regional army interactions, they should be less. Those communities who supported us increased their recruitment. So therefore, more Gurkhas should be there, more Sikhs should be there. They also came out with the idea of martial race. Right? Martial race for the Britishers were those who were very good fighters, but they were brainless, as per the British. And therefore, they cannot lead a revolt. So they were, for example, Jats were considered martial race, Rajputs were considered martial race, right? Sikh were considered martial race. They are totally wrong. It is their stereotype because Azad Hind Fauj, right? So therefore, Lal Killa pe trial jo hua, right? So Gurbakh Singh Dhillon, Prem Sehgal, Shah Nawaz, right? So therefore, we proved them wrong. It is their stereotype. So for them, martial race are good fighters but cannot lead a revolt. It is their stereotype. Then they decided that from now on we'll keep the sepoys in barracks. They will live with their family in barracks. Cantonment system. From the prelims perspective, last year cantonments were criticized by Honorable Prime Minister and others as relic of British era. Why? Because cantonments were designed so that the sepoys, they are not in touch with civilians. So they never developed any empathy, any sympathy with the issues of the civilians. Right? No newspapers will be allowed into cantonments, which can make the nationalism rise among the sepoys. Right? So that is why now cantonment boards are being ended. Right? So Peel Commission becomes important from the perspective of prelims because recently in current affairs something related to them came. Right? So that is why Jallianwala Bagh takes place. Na? Otherwise, how this will happen? So therefore, the Britishers are able to use the British Indian Army against the Indian national movement because of this cantonment system. Right? Then they say uniform culture should be promoted. The first loyalty should be to the salt, and second loyalty should be caste and religion. Right? So that movies like Kesari are made. In Kesari movie, Fine, Afghan issue is there, but ultimately Akshay Kumar is dying for salt, for employer, and for, so they develop this kind of culture. What kind of a Sikh you are that you came back from the battlefront? You have brought down the name of the Sikh because you did not die for me, for me, for me. What kind of a Jat you are, what kind of a Rajput you are that you did not die for me, for me, for me. So they try to misuse the pride of caste and pride of religion in this particular manner. Right? So that's how they built this uniform culture. Right? And they want, that's why even in Pakistan today, the military generals, they do not keep religious symbols of the Muslims. They remain clean shaven and all. Why? British culture. In civilian life, people say, we are your civilians, dash civilians. Right? So why it represents that we are from a separate, so that was brought by the, and that's why the Kents are being, cantonment system, etc., they are being brought down. So therefore Peel Commission was one of the major, they decided that at least 1:2 ratio should be there, so that even tomorrow if any revolt takes place, then there is, for every 2 Indians there is a 1 Firangi Sepoy. Right? So therefore these kind of things they bring in the Peel Commission. Right? They were very happy that the princes, right, they supported them. Right? So it was a reward to them that we will do no more annexation. Right? Also they noticed that which princes gave leadership, who had lost their kingdoms. So that's why no annexation will be done after 1857. Right? Repeat those things which are good. In fact, Indian Councils Act 1861 is also brought. And if you notice in the Indian Councils Act, those who are Indian members, right, they're basically Raja of Patiala. Patiala is a princely state. Right? So therefore, why such people are being brought? Because irrespective of the borders, they are the traditional leaders of the Indian society. So Britishers, they want to have the traditional leaders of the Indian society in their pockets. British Indian Association, set up in 1851, was dominated by Bengal zamindars. And after these Rajas, the councils, they were dominated by the zamindars of British Indian Association. Why? It was a British policy to play divide and rule. The leaders should always be in our favor. Macaulay's minute on Indians' education, right? So therefore the Western educated Indians, they also did not support the 1857 revolt. Why? Because we were intoxicated at that point of time. हमें नशा चढ़ा हुआ था. We were like, Papa Mary Jaan, one day will be making us, industrialized. Right? So therefore these people are, they have not read French Revolution, they have not read American Revolution, they have not read 1642-51 English Civil War. What do they want? They want Bahadur Shah Zafar back. Backward. Right? This is the attitude of Western educated middle class. Right? So therefore those who are sons of zamindars who become Western educated middle class, initially they are pro-British, and the zamindars. So therefore that's how the British strategy of keeping the common man divided from the leaders. Right? That is what they do. Right? So administrative changes are made in the executive, legislative, judicial arena with greater participation of Indians. This sentence is slightly incomplete. The reality is what I'm telling you. Right? Indian elites. Right? Indian elites. Otherwise they did not, they became more authoritarian. They do not hold exam in India. Right? We had to fight a lot for holding the exam in India. The first exam in India was done in 1922. Right? So that is what is there. Unconditional pardon was granted to rebels, obviously, warna tumhara aur band basta. British actively pursued the policy of divide and rule, which I told you, right? So therefore that is what is there. Significance of the revolt. So I have told you already. Here, for example, Indian Police Act came. So they were very, very perplexed that the police is the first line of defense. So why the police did not know that we civilians are going to revolt. So therefore they set up a police commission. They set up a police commission in 1860, which gave Indian Police Act. IPS is created by this. Indian Police Service is created by this, but they do not make Indians IPS. The first Indian IPS came in 1920s, I think. Right? So Britishers were ready to make you IS. They were not ready to make you IPS. Right? Why? Because they did not want guns in the hands of Indians. Right? So what this act is, concept of state police comes. Maharashtra police, Bihar police, this concept came here. Now at the top there will be Inspector General. At the district level there will be Superintendent of Police, who was removed by William Bentinck. Right, 1828 to 1835, he is brought back. And now here you have sub-inspector. Daroga is nothing but sub-inspector. right? Police station in charge. Today's SHO is this sub-inspector. Yes, the person you give gun to, you should not give him total power. So therefore, IG will be responding to Lieutenant Governor or the Governor, plus Superintendent of Police will be responding overall to District Collector or District Magistrate, and obviously he will be responding to LG. So overall civilian authority is there. That's why today also IPS, he reports to IAS, right? But the point is, once overall supervision is there, in police duties or in police activity, they do not interfere, right? So therefore overall direction will be given, but how to cultivate informers, how to execute a police operation, there these people, they will not interfere. And this is called a landmark. Why? Because for the first time, from top to bottom, a hierarchy of professional is brought. Otherwise, in the case of Warren Hastings, what is the case? You have district collector, and below him, zamindars are there. In the case of your this thing, Cornwallis, even if SP is there, IG is not there. So therefore, there you have LG or governor, and below you have what you call as initially SP. Later on, this SP was changed to DC, and below you have darogas. Right? So for the first time, from top to bottom, a hierarchy of professional is brought. Indian Police Service is also created by the Indian Police Act of 1861. By the way, separate exam used to take place. Separate exam used to. Today we have common exam. At that point of time, separate exam for forest services, separate exam for police services, and separate exam for other services. Other services mean IAS, Imperial Civil Service. Right? So therefore, these kind of things are being done. So that is what is. Nature of the revolt is this: modern nationalism was missing. As I told you, total 100% unity was not there. How do you decide that whether there is modern nationalism or not? Liberty, equality, fraternity. So therefore, when you talk about liberty, liberty means people are supreme. Were we designing democracy? Answer is no. Right? If people are supreme, then there should be, in politics, people, they should be supreme. Right? Similarly, unity was not 100%, as we have already discussed, right? So it was not 100% based on modern nationalism. It was not 100% based on modern nationalism. That is more of a mains topic, right? So prelims के हिसाब से उसमें इतना कुछ वो नहीं बनता है, right? Recently movie came on Veer Savarkar. So it was Veer Savarkar who said, no, modern nationalism war present. It was first war of independence, fought for Swadharm and Swaraj. In a way, we won the war for Swadharm, but we lost the war for Swaraj. Why? Because the proclamation of Queen on 1st of November 1858 promised Indians that further interference in our religious matters will not take place. Right? Karl Marx also said that it is a war of independence. Right? So therefore, different opinions are present. We say that it was 60% war of independence and 40% not. Right? Because a proper war of independence should have desired modern democracy and all. Right? So therefore, that is what is there. This is very simple, right? So basically, so now the topic is Governor Generals. At times UPSC asks that following fala thing happened during time period of which, right? So broad idea should be there. Until 1773, it is governors of Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, right? Calcutta Presidency, Fort William Presidency. It is in 1773, right? This year is wrong here, it should be 1773. Regulating Act 1773 elevates the Governor of Bengal to GG Bengal, right? Then Charter Act of 1833 elevated GG Bengal to GG India. And then Government of India Act 1858 converted the GG India into Viceroy and GG, right? So therefore, let's see what happened in different time period, right? So during the time period of Warren Hastings, so he became Governor of Bengal in 1772. So he ended the dual government, which was brought after the Treaty of Allahabad 1765. What do you mean by dual government? Whatever the work of Bengal is, horizontally divided into two parts: Diwani under East India Company and Nizamat under Nawab, right? So therefore, he brought direct government in Nizamat as well as Diwani, right? He started posting Firangi district collectors, right? That is what he is doing. So he was the first GG Bengal. Then it was during his time period that Regulating Act set up Supreme Court at Calcutta. So it was what you call as a court for the British, of the British, by the British. The Act of 1781 clarified the jurisdiction. Conflict was that if you are a British officer and you have done an act while you are on official duty and a court case is there, then who should hear it, right? So therefore that was clarified that such cases will be heard by the Governor General. The Supreme Court at Calcutta will hear all cases in Calcutta territory, plus they will hear cases regarding EIC property, plus they will hear cases of Britishers, minus official actions, right? Pitt's India Act 1784 also came during his time period. So Pitt's India Act created, now he is going to have two bosses. One boss is Court of Directors in London and super boss is Board of Control, right? Strained relationship with Chat Singh. So Chat Singh was Maharaja of Banaras, so his lands were taken over because he could not pay the land revenue, right? Because, right, so whatever permanent settlement has not come, it is in 1793, but Banaras was annexed by the Britishers after the Battle of Buxar, so therefore he could not pay the land revenue, so therefore his lands were taken away, right? And that led to some issues, and ultimately not just this, but on charges of corruption also, right? He was impeached and a trial took place in England on charges of corruption. Ultimately he was acquitted. Honest aadmi tha bechara. Founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Why? Because he was an Orientalist. Orientalism is there till 1813, so rule India the India way. If you want to rule India the India way, should you not have knowledge of India? Should you not have knowledge of Sanskrit, Hindu laws, ancient India? So therefore Asiatic Society of Bengal was an organization which is set up by this Supreme Court of Calcutta judge, William Jones, along with Warren Hastings, and they tried to study the Indian systems, the Indian languages, the Indian history, right? So this kind of, Dwarkanath Tagore was also a member, right? Dwarka, Dev, Rabindra, three generation of Tagores, Dwarkanath Tagore, Debendranath Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, Dwarka, Dev, Rabindra, right? So Dwarkanath Tagore was also a member of this, right? Then reformative actions, as we have already discussed, establish Adalat se judiciary wala hai, abolish dual government, right? Collectors were code of Gentoo laws. Gentoo laws mane, actually I told you na, people were making them fool, right? That is in different matters. So basically codification of Hindu laws and codification of Islamic laws. In which language? In English language. By a committee of Pandits for the Hindu laws and by a committee of Maulvis for Islamic laws. These are known as Gentoo laws, right? What is the meaning of Gentoo? वो आप थोड़ा सा internet पे search कर लेना, Gentoo. Anyways. Repressive actions. So it is during his time period that second Mysore war is taking place, 1780-84. First Anglo-Maratha war also took place during his time period. Rohilla war, as I told you, in 1774, Rohilkhand was annexed. The balance was Kingdom of Rampur. अभी 2 मिनट पहले बोला था? Right, so therefore these are the things which are happening. Bhuttewala, Cornwallis, 1786-93. So he is father of civil services. He is not just father of 3 services. He has 3 children, right? He is father of lawyers also. He is father of property dealers also, right? And he is father of civil services also. Because Permanent Settlement Act of 1793 made land purchasable, saleable, mortgageable, leaseable, right? So all property dealers should have his photograph. Right? When they write down property, apart from that, they should write down, Cornwallis. Plus all the lawyers, so this concept that someone else can fight my case, right? This concept was also brought by Cornwallis Code of 1793, right? So he is multiple, this thing. Third Mysore War, 1789-92 or 90-92, right, where half of Mysore is taken over, majorly by the British and some portions by Hyderabad and Marathas. That also took place during his time period, right. Although the 1784 Pitt's India Act banned wars in India, but Mysore was treated as an exception because Tipu was overambitious, right. Created post of district judge, that means separation of power he is reintroducing. Cornwallis Code 1793, permanent settlement, fine, the same thing, reorganization, right. John Shore, 1793 to 1798, we can say that he implemented the Charter Act of 1793, right. So that is what he is doing. Apart from that, Battle of Kharda was the last battle between Marathas and Hyderabad. Marathas defeated Hyderabad in 1795. After that, Hyderabad complained to the East India Company, why did you not help me? Right, East India Company is like, why should I help you? Hyderabad is like, in 1766, I gave you Natan Sarkars so that you will help me, right? Then East India Company says, but since 1782, Marathas are also my friend. You're also my friend. He is also my friend. When two of my friends are fighting, then what we should do? Right? Then came a vulture after John Shore. The name of that vulture was Wellesley. Right? Wellesley, 1798-1805. He asked Hyderabad, do you really want my help? Hyderabad said yes. Then signed subordinate alliance. So Hyderabad became the first Indian state to sign subordinate alliance. Right? So therefore, that's how things are taking shape. Here comes, ये देखो, बाल तो ऐसे बना रखे जैसे असली में इसके. Original name, right? Richard Wellesley. There were three brothers: Richard Wellesley, Arthur Wellesley, Henry Wellesley. Henry Wellesley was sent to Awadh in 1801. He imposed subordinate alliance. Arthur Wellesley led the Britishers in the Second Anglo-Maratha War. Later on, he will also fight Napoleon in 1813. Later on, in his biography, he wrote down that the number one fighters that I fought against was Marathas. Napoleon was number two. Right? So in his own biography, he is writing this. Right? So anyways, Richard, Arthur, Henry. So confusion is there. So ऐसा. Established Fort Williams College, Labasna, 1800 to 1806. Madras Presidency was formed during his tenure. This statement is not 100%. I personally do not agree with this statement. Madras Presidency was there since 1652 or something. It became a province now. Why? Matlab presidency as a province. So fine. If I am forced to choose and no other option is there, I'll mark it as correct. But presidency earlier was a regional headquarter. Later on, it became a province. Why? Because it is during his time period that fully you have this what you call as Fourth Anglo-Mysore War is taking place. Right? So fine. Right. Fourth Mysore War he is doing, then started the policy of subordinate alliance, which I have already explained. Subordinate alliance is equal to policy of indirect rule plus military alliance plus EIC military plus subsidy plus foreign policy. Okay. This has been mentioned. Then took over administration of Tanjore, 1799, Surat, right? Carnatic was annexed in 1801. So on grounds of maladministration, by the way. Treaty of Bassein with Marathas, 1802, after what you call as, this is where the Peshwa gave up his signed subordinate alliance, right? So in return for, you will help me, this resulted in Second Anglo-Maratha War, right? December 1802, right? So what is the order of Marathas signing the subordinate alliance? Which was the first Maratha to sign subordinate alliance? Where the internet sources, at times they give you wrong information. Who was the first one? Gaikwad of Baroda, right? Treaty of Cambay. Right, 1802. Then December 1802, Peshwa. Then Sindhia in 1803. And then 1817-19, Holkar and Bhosle. Right. So Gaikwad, Peshwa, Sindhia, Holkar, Bhosle. Right. So therefore that is the right. So therefore that is what is happening. Then you have Barlow. 1805-07, Vellore mutiny took place. So actually there were many mutinies by the sepoys because the grievances of the sepoys were similar grievances were earlier also. Minto, 1807 to 1813. So it is during his time period that Charles Metcalfe, who was the British resident in Delhi, he signed Treaty of Amritsar on behalf of the British. Right. So it led to military alliance with the Sikh. Sutlej River became the border. Right. If you remember. Charter Act of 1813 was passed during his time period. Why we mention it here? Because the British Parliament will always take opinion of the Governor General in India that what do you think should be done in India, right? That's why Charter Act of 1793 is influenced by Cornwallis, right? And this 1813 will be influenced by him. Hastings 1323, another vulture, right? Empire builder, right? His policy is known as policy of paramountcy. He said that from now on, British are going to be paramount power in India, and if the British interests are impacted, then we'll take very harsh measure and we will even annex. That's why in 1817-19, fine, after the Third Anglo-Maratha War, after the Second Anglo-Maratha War, was Maharashtra annexed? Nahi na. Or was other territories 100% annexed? Nahi na. But this time they take a very, very harsh measure of annexing Swaraj. Right? So therefore, policy of paramountcy, that if you disturb us, then we'll take any kind of action. Right? Pindaris, right, they are basically, because of subordinate alliance, the sepoys, they lose their jobs. So therefore, because of subordinate alliance, which was signed in 1803-05, etc. So Pindaris, they became independent fighters. Veer movie of Salman Khan is also based on Pindaris, if you want to watch. I have not seen. Surili Akhiyon Wale, okay, that song is there. Anyways, right. So Pindaris were, he fought against the Pindaris, right. Bombay is annexed. Peshwa Bajirao II is the last Peshwa, 1796 to 1818. That's why Bombay is the next, Matlab Swarajya is the next. So therefore Bombay Presidency became a province now. Establishment of Ryotwari in Bombay by Mr. Elphinstone, who was follower of Thomas Munro. So Ryotwari was a B grade scam B, right? So that is taking place during his time period, right? Mehelwari is also taking place during his time period, 1323, right? Repressive actions. So Third Maratha War, Anglo-Nepal War, and after the Anglo-Nepal War, this treaty was signed, Treaty of Sogoli, plus treaty with Sindhia, right? Treaty with Sindhia is wrong here, right? So my मतलब history में different sources they give different fact, मतलब मेरे हिसाब से, मतलब मैं ठीक है ना ऐसा, तो मेरे लिए personal है, तो treaty with Sindhia हो सकता है कोई एक और treaty हो, ठीक है, which I am not aware of, but treaty with Sindhia was signed in 1803, subordinate alliance was signed in 1803, here it was signed with Holkar and Bhosle, right? Bombay, okay, ठीक है. Amherst 1823 to 1828, so here we have first Burma War, right? 1824-26. Why this war was fought? The EIC army said that Burma is doing territory expansion and therefore northeast is coming under threat. That means Burma tomorrow can attack us in Bengal. So therefore here this Burma war took place. After this, Assam was stabbed in the back because Assam was also facing threat of Burma. So a home kingdom instead was annexed by the Britishers, right? So earlier there used to be an independent Assam. Nagaland was also annexed by the Treaty of Yandobo. Then in 1830, that is 4 years later, Kachar was also annexed. So this is how Northeast is becoming part of British India, right? Bharatpur 1826, okay, right. So then Benting 2835, he banned Sati. He is the first Governor General of India. He banned Sati in 1829, first Governor General of India, right? It is during his time period that judiciary was opened to Indians by the Charter Act of 1833. Charter Act of 1833 also opened uncovenanted civil services to India. These are the important things which are taking place. Coorg War is taking place. Those of you are coffee lovers, how many of you are coffee lovers? Right? So therefore first coffee plantations were set up in Coorg. Coorg is today part of Karnataka. Coorg was annexed by Mr. William Bentinck, right? 1828 to 1835. It is during his time period that Thomas Macaulay is becoming member of Governor General of India's Council. This Macaulay is going to ultimately be responsible for IPC, CPC, CRPC post 1857, plus Macaulay, creation of Brown Sahib, Macaulay's minute on Indians education, that is will give you Western education in English language, 1835, right? So therefore all of these things are taking place. Ideology wise, if you look at William Bentinck, see in the domain of law, he is bringing Westlake laws. In the domain of law, he is setting up law commission under Macaulay, So he is ruling India, not the India way, but the Western way. So he is not an Orientalist. But while banning Sati, he asked Raja Ram Mohan Roy that till the point of time you do not prove to me that Sati is murder as per every Shastra, I am not going to ban Sati. That means in the domain of social reforms, he behaved like Orientalist. So in the domain of Sati, he wanted to rule India the India way, but in the domain of public matters, he wanted to rule India the British way, right? So therefore, that is what is happening during his time period, right? So, right, ये सब चीजें हैं यहाँ पे, तो abolition of Sati. Metcalfe, 1835 to 1836, he is famous for liberalizing press, right? He was so much in favor of liberalism that he had to resign, right? So, liberator of press in India, right? So, ऐसा. Auckland, 1836 to 42. So, Ranjit Singh died in 1839. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, 1801 to 1839. Tripartite treaty in 1838, right? Shah Shuja of Afghanistan plus Maharaja Ranjit Singh plus British, right? Afghanistan became a puppet state. First Afghan war is being fought during his time period, 1838 to 42. It resulted in indirect rule in Afghanistan. Bank of Bombay was established in 1840. This later became Imperial Bank of India and now State Bank of India. सही है यार, बढ़िया. Allenborough, 1842 to 44. right? Abolished slavery in 1843. There was no slavery in India as such. This is a very controversial thing, right? So therefore, the Britishers' sale purchase of human beings did not take place. Bonded labor is being usually called as slavery. That is, you have not paid a loan back or something. So bonded labor, but fine. Repressive actions. So fine. Brought an end to Afghan war. So 1838-42. So that is happening. War with Gwalior, 1843, some small war would have taken place. Take a Gwalior, Sindhya, Gwalior, right? Hardinge, 1844 to 48. So female infanticide and human sacrifice. Roorkee Engineering College set up in 1857, not 47, 1857. Woods अच्छा नहीं ये 47 ही था वो मद्रास बॉम्बे कलकत्ता में 3 यूनिवर्सिटीज वर सेट अप राइट सो फाइन रूरकी इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज वर सेट अप First Anglo-Sikh War, 1845, 44-45. Second will take place under Dalhousie, right? So this resulted in setting up of indirect rule in Punjab. Jalandhar was also annexed, right? So therefore that is what is happening. Preferred to English educated in employment. Why? Because in 1844 what happens? Knowledge of English was made compulsory for government job in 1844. That's why the sentence is there, preferred to use English in, to have English speakers in the government. Knowledge of English was made compulsory for government job, right? That's how speaking English became swag, because money got associated with it. Dalhousie, so Dalhousie, his original name, ठीक है, हमें क्या करना जो भी होगा, Ramsey एक Game of Thrones में भी था उसी जैसा ही होगा ये, ठीक है जो भी है, right? So basically he introduced railways in India, he introduced canals in India, he introduced public works department in India. Right, in every province, PWD, public works means public roads, public sanitation, all of these things, right? So fine, he did good job there. He implemented Wood's Dispatch of 1854. Wood's Dispatch said, so Woods is sending some directions, right? That's why it is called as Wood's Dispatch. Mass education in vernaculars, that is a key hallmark of Wood's Dispatch. In high school, use English plus vernaculars. In colleges, use English. Right, so primary education में vernaculars, उससे ऊपर English मतलब plus vernaculars, and in colleges English, right? So he is in favor of, plus Wood's Dispatch also said promote female education, so he is in favor of female education also, but otherwise he was a person who did lot of annexations. Doctrine of lapse was brought by him, annexation of Awadh was done by him. So that is what is written here. He also took over Burma, Santhal rebellion, right, also took place during his time period, 1855. 50,000 Santals were brutally killed, right? So that is what is happening. So all of these things are Hindu Widow Remarriage Act. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar lobbied him, right? So therefore he is a social reformer in that particular sense. So that is what is happening, and then we'll go on a break, and after break we will talk about some broad idea regarding the tribal revolts, that why the tribal revolts they took place. So if we begin with the peasant movements, this is not like we have organized it in a different manner. So therefore, for example, indigo revolt, it happened because of contract farming, right? Because in the indigo cultivation, what used to happen, this kind of structure used to get created, that Zamindar will be leasing out lands to the European planter. And once Zamindar lease out land to the European planter, then for all practical purposes for the lease period, so Zamindar will be paying land revenue to the British government. Lease amount will be paid by the European planter, and under him the ryots will be working. So for the ryots, the planter is the new Zamindar. Planter can remove them from the occupied land, because the ryots, they do not have occupancy rights, right? Until 1859 Rent Act, they do not have the occupancy right, but the 1859 Rent Act was not properly implemented. So why this indigo revolt took place? Because the planters, they used to force the ryot to cultivate 1/4 of their occupied plot for indigo cultivation. When they used to cultivate for indigo, they required money to purchase indigo seeds and to purchase the seed drills, etc. So as a result, loan was given to the ryots by the indigo planter, and they were forced to take these loans, because if you do not take these loans, then the planter will force you out, right? So therefore that kind of system was there. Once they cultivated indigo, so therefore the productivity of the soil got greatly deteriorated. Now the next season they will cultivate indigo here, but the income from wheat, rice from this particular plot will be less, right? Now they sold indigo cultivated to the planter. When they sold indigo cultivated to the planter, planter did not give them a remunerative price. As a result, although this loan from the perspective of prelims was a low interest rate loan, but because remunerative price was not given by the planter when the ryots they sold indigo to the planter, so this price was not remunerative, so therefore it resulted in continued indebtedness. They could not pay back the loans which they had taken from the planter, right? So the structure is that the ryots they get loan from the planter to cultivate indigo, then they sell indigo to the planter, but planter gives them very less money, so they are not able to pay back the loan. Plus the soil productivity is destroyed on this particular plot. As a result, overall their incomes for the next season will also be down, right? If they refuse to cultivate indigo because they do not have any occupancy rights, then the indigo planters can throw them away from the plot, right? So ultimately this resulted in this indigo revolt in 1859-60. However, a unique feature was there that this time instead of using violence, the ryots they went to the courts. Why? Because the Rent Act of 1859 was there, and the Rent Act of 1859 in Bengal gave occupancy rights to those ryots who had cultivated a plot continuously for more than 12 years. So when they refused to cultivate indigo, then the European planter first went to the court saying that there is a contract whereby the ryot has agreed to cultivate indigo. See, he is not cultivating indigo. Then the ryots they began a no rent campaign, right? Because like earlier they were paying rents to the zamindar, now they pay rents to the European planter. Now when they began a no rent campaign, the indigo planter said, since you are not paying rent, so therefore get out of my plot, because I have the lease of these lands. Then these people they went to the court. So here is the difference. Traditionally the ryots they will use violence, but in this particular scenario, instead of using violence, they are using some modern method of fighting court cases. So they pooled in money and they fought court case. Why they were fighting the court case? They said that we have occupancy rights, and why we are not able to pay the rents? We are not able to pay the rents because of this forced indigo cultivation. Had this forced indigo cultivation not been there, we would have been able to pay the rents, and there would not have been any ground for the European planter to remove us from the plot. Right? This is also a movement where the Western educated middle class takes the leadership of the ryots. For example, Deen Bandhu Mitra, he wrote a play Neel Darpan, right, which raised awareness. This play was also converted into English, that is translated into English by a Christian missionary. His name was James Long. This resulted in this particular play being performed in England also. So therefore the British parliamentarians, they are also getting to know that what is happening in India, right? So therefore that is what is happening. Ultimately an indigo commission it is set up in 1860, and this indigo commission says that fulfill the present contract, that is cultivate the indigo as you have signed a contract with the European planter, but after this you will be free to not cultivate indigo, right? For recovery of loans, any other means can be adopted, but you will not force the ryots to cultivate indigo. That is how the indigo cultivation shifted from Bengal to Bihar, where it continued as Tinkatia system. In Tinkatia system, on 3/20th of your plot, you will be forced to cultivate indigo. When Mahatma Gandhi came from South Africa to India in 1915, so Champaran Satyagraha in 1917 was against this. Why? Because in 1880s, German synthetic dye was created. As a result, the demand for natural indigo came down. But because of the World War I, where Germans were fighting against the Britishers, the demand for natural indigo increased, and therefore the oppression of the ryots again increased. And therefore Mahatma Gandhi he did Champaran Satyagraha, which was his first civil disobedience. How it was a civil disobedience? When Mahatma Gandhi reached Champaran, he was asked by the authorities to leave Champaran. He said, you can arrest me if you want to, but I will not obey your command. So therefore it became first civil disobedience by Mahatma Gandhi ji in India, right? So therefore that is like this indigo revolt, it is it is across multiple territories, and that's why we discussed it in detail. Hanji. Rent Act of 1859 or Limitation Act was in Bombay, right? That is Limitation Act. It meant that you cannot charge interest on interest, right? So therefore, that was in Bombay, right? And if I remember correctly, this was brought after this Deccan Uprising, right? Bombay Deccan riots. So in the Bombay Deccan riots, what happened in 1875? So actually, there is this U.S. Civil War which is taking place from 1861 to 1865. US was an important supplier of cotton. As a result, the supply of cotton in the world markets declined. When supply declines, prices increase. So therefore, who benefits when the prices of cotton increase? The ryots. So therefore, the ryots of Maharashtra, they were cultivating cotton and they were very happy that the cotton prices have gone up. But once US Civil War ended in 1865, gradually the cotton prices it came down. Therefore, the incomes of the ryots came down. Therefore, the economic pressure on the ryots it increased, right? And they had taken loans from the moneylenders to pay the land revenue. Okay. At this point of time, the government will come to auction the lands if you have not paid, land revenue, because land revenue was also very high. So therefore, the Pune Sarjanik Sabha, which was one of the pre-INC organization, right? It was set up by M.G. Ranade. So this organization took signatures of ryots, thousands of ryots, and they represented the cause of the ryots in front of the Bombay government. And they were able to convince the Bombay government. Bombay government said that it will be the last resort by the government to auction the lands, right? We will first sell cattle, we'll give time, etc., etc. So we are giving time, right? And we do not want to take away the property of the ryots, because in Bombay there is the ryotwari, scam B, right? Now the ryots, they went to the moneylenders. Moneylenders said, if I give you loan, I don't think that you will be able to repay loan, right? Because otherwise your economic situation is not good. It is then that the ryots, they lost patience and they became violent, and this is known as Bombay Deccan riots of 1875. After this, obviously, the riot was, law and order situation was restored by the government, but the government brought a law which regulated the interest rates, right? That is, you cannot take interest on interest after X number of years. Otherwise, it will act like a, what you call as, the amount will increase, right, to an unprecedented level, right? So that is what is happening. Similarly, other revolts are there. हर कोई तो discuss नहीं करें. जैसे Pabna Agrarian Leagues, it is connected with the law, so fine, we can discuss it. So Rent Act 1859, it said that any ryot in Bengal, any ryot who has cultivated a particular plot continuously for more than 12 years, he is going to have occupancy rights. What do you mean by having occupancy rights? Occupancy rights is basically means that you will not be tenant at will. Tenant at will is, Zamindar tells you, from tomorrow you should not be seen on this plot. So therefore that is, you are tenant at the will of Zamindar. What do you mean by occupancy rights? Zamindar cannot remove you like this. Zamindar would have to go to police. And there can be a court case also. Right? So for example, today you have tenancy, you have occupancy rights. Your rent agreement says that 1 month notice must be given by your landlord. If without giving 1 month notice, he wants to remove you, you can fight a court case against him also. That means you have that much amount of occupancy rights, right? So therefore, in the Pabna, it is in East Bengal. So therefore, here the ryots, they came together and they set up what you call as leagues, Pabna Agrarian Leagues. They pooled in money, they again fought in the courts, right? So it is again not here, violence is not being used. So we are seeing a pattern that until 1857, the ryots, they fought with violence, but when they realized that violence has failed, so they adopted new methods. They are becoming more aware of the laws also, right? And they fought for their occupancy rights, right? Here also, this fight was against the Indian zamindars. So therefore, here the Indian publications, they got divided. For example, Bengali of Surendranath Banerjee supported the ryots, but Amrita Bazar Patrika, it supported the zamindars. Why? Because for Western educated middle class, Bapu zamindar. Because education is not cheap, it is costly. So who is Western educated middle class? Those who are from landed backgrounds, like Raja Raman Roy, right? He was a big landlord, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Ultimately, the government brings in 1885 Bengal Tenancy Act, right? So it takes a lot of time, but ultimately relief comes, right? Eka movement, UP Kisan Sabha movement, right? These movements, they took place during the time period of non-cooperation movement. Eka movement was led by Madari Pasi, right? UP में which kind of land revenue system is there? Mehlwari. It is in that area where Zamindar was the owner of the land, right? So here the grievance was what you call as higher rents, illegal lavabs, and bedakli. Bedakli means lack of occupancy rights. Madari Pasi did not believe in non-violence, so therefore when repression took place by the British police, they became violent. And after that, the Britishers, they have the alibi of maintaining law and order, so they are easily repressed. Mopla revolt, it happened multiple times. It happened pre-1857 in 1840s. It happened post-1857 in 1870s, and it happened in 1920s also. Issue here was that in the case of Malabar, Malabar was part of Madras Presidency. So ideally, which land revenue system should apply? Ryotwari. But Ryotwari did not apply here. Why? Here, the Brahmin princely families, they were made owners of land. So here, zamindari-like system was there, with no rights of the tenant ryots. Tenant ryots were Muslims, and Muslim ryot is called Mopla or Mapilla, right? Why they did not apply Ryotwari in Malabar? Because Thomas Munro was Orientalist, so he believed in ruling India the India way. And it was a belief that in the ancient times, the lands, Lord Parshuram gave the lands of Malabar to the Brahmin princely families who are called Janmis. So therefore, that is why, because he was Orientalist, so therefore, in the case of Malabar, Orientalism says that big landlord should be there. In rest of the Madras, Orientalism says that Ryot should be the owner of the land. That is why here the Brahmin princely families were the owners of the land. When non-cooperation movement was taking place, so therefore economic grievance was there against the Hindu zamindars. Religious energy was very high because of Khilafat movement 1920-24. Once the Congress leaders were arrested, the movement became leaderless. So religion is such a thing, it is very high energy thing. So imagine that you're traveling in a car with high energy, that is 140 kilometers per hour, and the driver jumps out of the car. Oh, because of overspeeding, the police puts in a hand and takes out the driver, right? So therefore now what will happen to the car? The car will go in XYZ direction, right? So when the movement became leaderless, the car went in XYZ direction. XYZ direction is communal riots broke out. Soon they said that it is not the zamindar who is oppressing us, it is the Hindu zamindar who is oppressing us. So justice is not on the side of either Moplas here or in the favor of Hindu zamindars, because Hindu zamindars are responsible for economic oppression of the poor, and Moplas are responsible for communal rights or communal violence against the Hindu zamindars, right? So therefore justice is not on anyone's side. In the case of Bardoli Satyagrah took place in 1928, so it has a small background to it. When non-cooperation movement was launched by Mahatma Gandhi ji in 1920, his plan was that if in 1 year Swaraj is not given, then we are going to start a civil disobedience movement. Now 1 year was about to be over and Swaraj was not being given. So Mahatma Gandhi said that fine, we are going to start a movement. But then in 1922, what happened? Chauri Chora incident happened. But before Chauri Chora incident, in November 1921, there was visit of Prince of Wales. When there was visit of Prince of Wales, then in the urban areas, the workers, they became violent against those who supported the visit. Who supported the visits? For example, those who were Christians, those who were Parsi businessmen, right? Those who were landlords, they were supporting the visit of Prince of Wales. And Prince of Wales is symbolic authority of the British colonialism, because he's from the royal family. So workers are showing black flags, they are showing roses. So therefore workers, they took away their roses and crushed them. So Mahatma Gandhi got angry, right? That I told you to stay non-violent and you have done violence. So therefore there is a punishment for you. And what is the punishment? Instead of starting civil disobedience movement at all British India level, we are going to start civil disobedience movement only in Bardoli, right? So therefore preparations began through constructive work in Bardoli. Right, but then tum log sudre nahi, you did Chauri Chora, because when 3 of the Satyagrahis were shot dead by the police, after that the people in Chauri Chora in UP became violent and they burnt alive 22 policemen, right? So after that Mahatma Gandhi is overwhelmed with violence and therefore he withdrew the non-cooperation movement and suspended the civil disobedience movement. So therefore he came out with Bardoli resolution, whereby he said that till the point of time the Indians are not trained in non-violent satyagraha, till that point of time no future movement will take place, right? So therefore there the issue of Bardoli ends. Why this issue is important? Because in the Bardoli satyagraha of 1928 there is success, and one of the reason of success is that since preparations were being done for the civil disobedience movement, therefore here the masses were very well organized. So that is the linkage with the non-cooperation movement of 1920-22 and the consequent civil disobedience movement which did not take place. Anyways, what was the issue here? Issue here was that the government, it thought that the income of the Bardoli, it is part of Gujarat, Gujarat is part of Bombay. Which land revenue system is there in Bombay? Ryotwari, Scam B. So here the Ryot is payer of land revenue because he is the owner of the land. So therefore there was a system, the government decided that there is going to be increase in land revenue because the incomes of the Ryots has increased, and they came out with 35% increase. Now this became a grievance of the Ryots because this much amount of income had not increased. So here the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel took the leadership and he organized the Ryots. It is in Bardoli that he got the title Sardar. That title was given by the peasants and the women, right? He organized the Ryots into Chavnis, that is small groups. He also started Bardoli Patrika to highlight the issue, right? And he identified the calculation mistake in the government records, right? And then he started a no higher land revenue campaign. That means pay land revenue at the old rates. So the goal here is not Swaraj. We'll pay land revenue at the old rates, we'll not pay land revenue at the enhanced rates, right? Then movement gathered pace. Udhar Mahatma Gandhi started writing editorials, right? In his newspapers, Navjeevan was one, Young India was another, right? So here prelims related aspects they come in. Members of the Bombay PLA, Provincial Legislative Assembly, they also resigned, right? And then Phata poster and Nikle Hero, Mahatma Gandhi ji reached Bardoli, right? And now the Britishers, they are worried that now a big movement will be launched. So therefore an inquiry committee was set up and the inquiry committee found the truth. And the truth was that land revenue should be increased only by 6.03 percentage points and not by 35%. And this is how it is said that Bardoli lifted Mahatma Gandhi out of depression. Depression means political depression, right? Otherwise he was in Sabarmati Ashram doing constructive work, right? So therefore that is there, right? The Bhaga movement takes place in Bengal in 1946, right? So here the Bhaga movement is that your some portion of the income, it should be going to the sharecroppers. I think that is the issue, right? Telangana revolt, it is taking place in Hyderabad against the oppression of the zamindars. It is being led by the communists, right? So, and ultimately this Telangana movement, it contributes to integration of Hyderabad also, right? So that is what is there. Tribal revolts, why do the tribal revolts overall take place? Tribal revolts overall take place because of these factors, that for example this we discuss in the class also. Imagine that this is a tribal region, this is a forest. So Britishers' main concern was so much amount of cultivation is taking place in the forest, so therefore we should be able to take land revenue from the forest also. So they started extending the land revenue systems of the plains. These are the plains, these are the forests. They started extending the land revenue system of the plains to the forest areas also. So for example, if there is a zamindar in this particular area, they said, why don't you become owner of this particular forest land? And now it is your responsibility to pay me land revenue from this particular land. In some of the cases, they called the revenue farmers and they said that we are auctioning the right to collect land revenue from this forest. So therefore now it is your responsibility to collect land revenue from the ryots. In some of the cases, they made the tribal leader the owner of the land, and they said that now it is your responsibility to collect rents from the tribals and pay us the land revenue. In some of the cases, they made tribals the owner of the land, that is Ryotwari, and they said that now you are going to pay us the land revenue. When tribals, they are not able to pay the land revenue, then they said, don't worry, Mr. Moneylender, please come in. So Mr. Moneylender, meet Mr. Tribal, give loan to Mr. Tribal. so that Mr. Tribal is able to pay land revenue to the government. Then operation of high interest rate will be there. Sooner or later, landlessness will set in. Right here, if you are not able to pay land revenue, then government will auction the lands, and again the money lenders and merchants, they will participate. Apart from that, the British businessmen, they also started entering, because especially after 1813, the monopoly of East India Company over trade with India is ended. So therefore there is wealth in the forests, right? Industrialization requires minerals also, so mining can be done, timber can be extracted. So therefore British businessmen, Indian merchants, they also started entering into the forests. So imagine a tribal is there, right, collecting forest produce from the tree, and niche the British businessman agent is cutting the tree, right, because of timber, this kind of scenario. Then their autonomy was also hurt, because the IAS officer also came in and he said that I am the district collector, hila de pura district, right? So therefore autonomy of the tribal leader will also be hurt. That till yesterday I was the top judge, till yesterday I was the top executive, till yesterday I was the top legislator, and now this IAS officer has come and he is making some reels also, right, for Instagram, right, but पता नहीं है ना, तो एक तेरा बाप आया, ठीक है, इस टाइप से ऐसे रील बन रहा है, right? So therefore autonomy of the tribal leader is also hurt because of this. That is IAS officer, British laws, British rule of law, right? So therefore that is what is happening. And then apart from this, the Christian missionaries also came, right? That is, may God bless you, right? So therefore cultural autonomy, it is also hurt by the arrival. For example, Birsa Munda, the government also celebrated Birsa Munda, right? So from the perspective of prelims, the Munda Ulugulan of 1899 becomes important, right? And the day on which Mundas revolted, it was 25th of December 1899, right? So it was a symbolic revolt against cultural interference by the Christian missionaries, right? Plus the British laws are coming. What are British laws? For example, they banned jhum cultivation. Why they banned jhum cultivation? Because of ease of land revenue collection. Because they would do a field survey of something, and after the season when they come, here dhua, right? So therefore, from where to catch hold of these tribals, right? So where have they gone, right? So they have gone to some other part of the forest, right? So therefore, next time they bring a law banning jhum cultivation, and they tell the tribals that give lighter, give matchbox, right? No lighter, no matchbox, right? No jhum, jhum barabar jhum, no jhum, right? No jhum cultivation, this kind of scenario, because they wanted settled peasant communities who cultivate a particular plot season after season and who pay land revenue continuously. They banned hunting also. Why? Because they wanted to change the occupation of the people, right? So you are hunter gatherers, so therefore we are banning hunting, so that for your livelihood you have to become a ryot, that is a peasant, and therefore you will be paying land revenue to us, right? So therefore that is what they are doing. Plus they are bringing forest acts in 1878, whereby they classify the forest into reserved forest, protected forest, and open to all. In the reserved forest, there is loss of homeland because tribals, they cannot be present here. In the protected forest, there is loss of forest produce. Why? The tribal can collect forest produce for his own consumption, but cannot sell it for extra cash income. So there is loss of right to forest produce. And open to all, to open to all, right? So therefore, this is what is said, that the tribal life was turned upside down. UPSC asked a very interesting prelims question, right? What were the grievances of the tribals? There they mentioned all of these points, right? And one option was tribal life or agrarian order was turned upside down. And the correct option is to be chosen, and that is only one. So therefore, you go for the umbrella term, right? So therefore, the right answer was agrarian order was turned upside down, right? Because as they say that hathi ke pav mein sabka pav, that is, as they say, that is the umbrella term, includes all of them. So all the options were correct, but you had to choose one. So therefore, you go for the umbrella term, that is the agrarian way of life was turned upside down. Their cultural way, their political way, their economic way was turned upside down, right? So therefore, this is how, because of these different reasons, all of these revolts, they are taking place, right? So therefore, these are factual information, right? So this revolt, this year, this area, so fine, that we cannot get rid of, but here we are trying to think of the concepts which are there. For example, in the case of Santals who revolted in 1855, the Santals, they feared loss of their fatherland. They called their fatherland Dominico, right? So therefore, all of these revolts are against the outsiders. Outsiders are Indians from the plains or the Britishers, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Now, if we talk about revolutionaries, right? So the books, the left-wing, extreme left-wing books, they use the term revolutionary terrorism, right? How do they justify it? They say terror was the method, goal was revolution. Revolution means huge amount of change in a short amount of time, that is overthrow of the British rule. But we can simply use the term revolutionaries, will be in mains, will be saving one word also, and otherwise also revolutionaries is fine, because terrorism became terrorism, later on. Okay? They should amend it, they should change it, right? So why this revolutionary activity it is rising? The first time the revolutionary activity rises is, so revolutionaries, they came in these phases, right? So first they came in 1907 till 1911. Then there was something in 1912. Then there was something in 1913-15. Then revolutionaries, they rose in 1924. Then revolutionaries, they rose in 1928 till 1933. Right? Then you have in Quit India movement also from 1942 to 1945 there was underground activity, right? And then Azad Hind Fauj was also revolutionary in that particular sense, which is there from 1942 to 1945, right? So there was a consistency, right? I have a differing viewpoint from the books, right? From the extreme left-wing Marxist writers, that they randomly came up. Right, there is a pattern, and they had a long-term goal. Long-term goal was a repeat of 1857 revolt, and V. Savarkar's book, Indian War of Independence, fought for Swadharm and Swaraj. Recently, a movie also came on Savarkar. So therefore, that becomes from perspective of prelims. They may ask that what was the name of the book, or was it a War of Independence as per which people? And whenever these revolutionaries they were arrested, many of the times this book was found with them. So therefore the long-term goal, UPSC can ask a question, what was the long-term goal of the revolutionaries, right? So it was a repeat of 1857 revolt. What is 1857 revolt? It is Sepoy mutiny, that is disaffection in the army, and people also picking up arms to end oppression, right? So therefore that is what is happening. For example, in 1906, Yugantar magazine, right, it wrote that 30 crore Indians should raise their 60 crore hands and they should overthrow oppression with violence. Gadar writes, it said that 31 crore Indians should overthrow these 1.5 lakh Britishers from India with violence, right? So there was a continuous, this long-term goal was repeat of 1857 revolt. Short-term goal was, short-term method was individual heroic action. That is till the point of time we are not so strong that we can repeat 1857 revolt. Till that point of time, let us make individual sacrifice. And what was the goal of individual sacrifice? Instill a fear in the heart of the British and remove the fear from the heart of the Indians, right? Because when Indians will come to know that this, the British, they are not safe, they are not secure, so therefore the Indians, they will become kind of like, they'll get a sense of confidence, right? Confidence of, you can say in patriarchal terms, you can say British terms, you can say masculinity, right? So therefore these people, they try to give back us our masculinity, which was taken away, for example, by the Arms Act of 1878, which disarmed Indians, right? So from that particular perspective, what are the events which are taking place? When the Swadeshi movement failed, that is when the people's movement failed, because the repression of extremist leaders began after the Surat split of 1907. So therefore, when the people's movement became leaderless, after that, the revolutionaries came up. So therefore, when the peoples failed, then the guns came out. In 1912, Delhi conspiracy case in Chandni Chowk, Rash Bihari Bose and Sachin Sanyal, right? They threw bomb on Viceroy Hardinge, right? So Hardinge 1016, 1910 to 1916, right? The driver of the elephant, that is Mahout, he died sadly, and this person, by chance he survived, but he said that I felt as if my back has been burnt, and he spent many months in hospital, right? So that was good thing. Anyways. Right. So, but Rash Bihari Bose, recently a biography of Rash Bihari Bose has come couple of years back. Right. So Rash Bihari Bose could not be arrested. Later on, he'll give leadership in Gadar movement, 1913-15. So Gadar movement was by Punjabi NRIs, right? We will discuss it, but Bengali revolutionaries, they were also active. In 1924, again, when people's movement failed, that is when Mahatma Gandhi took back the non-cooperation movement in 1922. So Bhagat Singh and others, they had participated in the non-cooperation movement. Now they were disheartened, so therefore they picked up arms again. Chandrasekhar Azad and all of that. Kakori robbery case was done by HRA, Hindustan Republican Army. Then in 1928, Hindustan Republican Army, after Kakori robbery case had been repressed, so therefore Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, they resurrected HRA in the form of HSRA, Hindustan Socialist Republican Army. The only addition is what the word socialism is. Why? Because these revolutionaries, for example, Bhagat Singh was Marxist. So therefore now they were influenced by communist ideas. USSR had been set up in the year 1920. Communist Party of India had been set up in Tashkent in 1920. Communist Party had been set up in India in 1925. So therefore gradually the communist thought process were rising, and obviously it was very attractive because communism talks about ending the oppression of the poor by the rich. So they said that real independence will come not when the Britishers they leave India. Real independence will come when oppression by the rich of the poor, it stops, right? So therefore they were much more aware now, right? Then they do what you call as Lahore conspiracy case to take revenge of death of Lala Lajpat Rai during the Simon Commission agitation. Simon Commission was set up in 1927. It came to India in 1928. Their agitations were taking place. Lala Lajpat Rai was beaten up, lathi charged, right, by superintendent of police. His name was James Scott, right? Then to take revenge, later on he died because of injuries. To take revenge, Lahore conspiracy case was done in 1928, whereby Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev Rajguru, etc., they were involved in killing of Saunders, John Saunders, right? So although James Scott was not killed, Deputy Superintendent of Police Saunders was killed, but he was just a representative of the British rule, so there was no remorse in Bhagat Singh, right? Then in 1929, there was a bomb in CLA, that is Central Legislative Assembly. Central Legislative Assembly was set up by which act? The Government of India Act 1919. They were discussing Public Safety Bill and Trade Disputes Bill, right? The purpose of that was to hurt communism. And because Bhagat Singh is Marxist, so therefore he feels for the cause. He goes to the CLA and he throws a bomb. Bomb was harmless. Later on, he did not run away. BK Dutt, that is Bhukteshwar Dutt, and Bhagat Singh, they courted arrest, right? And after that, trial will take place in two cases, that is bomb in CLA 1929 and Lahore conspiracy case 1928. They became martyrs on 23rd of March 1931. Not in Bombay, not in bomb in CLA case. They became martyrs in which case? Lahore conspiracy case. So there also a prelims question, it can be generated, right? Jatin Das died on 64th day of the fast while he was in jail. Why the fast was started? Because of inhuman conditions of the prisoners. Then in 1930 till 33, Indian Republican Army is being created in East Bengal by Surya Sen. Surya Sen was a teacher. Teacher थोड़े खतरनाक होते हैं, बच के रहा करो, ठीक? By Surya Sen, ठीक है sir. Aurobindo Ghosh was also an educationist. By as a educationist, I need to remember those heroes from my sector who contributed to Indian national movement. You as UPSC aspirant, you should also remember those who contributed to INM. Surendranath Banerjee, right, had qualified UPSC exam. Because of age controversy, he was not allowed. Aurobindo Ghosh had qualified UPSC exam, deliberately did not go to give horse riding test. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, right, All India rank 4, then resigned. Then R.C. Dutt, ex-ICS officer, contributed to drain theory. So be it moderates, be it extremists, be it revolutionaries, we UPSC qualifiers were everywhere. Right? UPSC will never ask that which of the bureaucrats contributed, because usually the mahal is anti-bureaucrat, but at least we should pay tributes to our seniors, right? So anyways, Surya Sen, 1930-33, Chittagong Armory raid. Because we do not have weapons because of the Arms Act 1878, so therefore either we need money, right, or we need weapons. If we have money, then we can smuggle weapons. That's why Kakori robbery case, cash was looted, right, in 1925. Here Chittagong Armory is a place where weapons are kept. So here the weapons were looted. What is the significance of this is that for the first time after 1857 revolt, it is a group action. Group armed action. So therefore, there also a prelims question can get generated. It was the first group action after 1857 revolt, right? And Chittagong was cut off from the rest of India, and guerrilla warfare was also done from the forest. Women also became martyrs here, right? And Muslims also participated. So therefore, we also see a trend that there was no Hindu-Muslim rivalry as such in revolutionaries, right? So therefore, apart from this particular phase where Hindu nationalism was used, in all other phases, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, they fought together, right? So, but ultimately Surya Sen became a martyr, right, in 1934. Jawaharlal Nehru ji was charged on sedition when he supported the Chittagong Armory raid. Then Quit India movement and INA we are aware of. So broadly this is what is happening. Now let us see specifically the small details which are there. Yes. That is 1946 February after INA naval mutiny also took place. But that is Sepoy, that is considered part of INA. Yes, good. Right, so Bipin Chandra Pal is known as the father of revolutionary thoughts. For example, Bipin Chandra Pal resigned when Gandhiji began non-cooperation movement in 1920 because he disagreed with Mahatma Gandhi that even when the Britishers they do repression, then Indians should not respond with violence. Right, that was the difference because of which Bipin Chandra Pal ji resigned from Congress in 1920. Right, so Lal Bal Pal, right, before World War I took place in 1914. So disappointment among the youth from the working pattern of the moderates, right? So obviously repression. So therefore extremists they come, extremist repression. So suppress the fine. Okay. So this is what is there. After the World War I, sudden withdrawal of non-cooperation. So therefore before the World War I, what are the events which are? ठीक है, वो तो हो गया. तो ये क्या है इसमें ये वाला इसमें ज़्यादा better है, ठीक है? So for example, here comes the content for the prelims. So they were secret societies. For example, Yugantar, Anushilan Samiti. So therefore, where the branches were, who were the leaders which were present, right? Jatin Nath Banerjee, Bagha Jatin, right? So, right, Pramod Mittar, right? Pulin Bihari Das, right? All of these names are there. They were known for two activities: assassination of unpopular British officers, which we have discussed, that is remove the fear from the heart of the Indians and instill fear in the hearts of the British, right? They also performed Swadeshi dacoities. Like for example, later on Kakori robbery case is a Swadeshi dacoity. Here, Barra dacoity. Zamindar of Barra was looted. Why it is called Swadeshi dacoity? Because you are not looting this money for personal enrichment. You are going to use this money in freedom struggle. So therefore, that's why they are called Swadeshi dacoities, right? To raise funds for purchasing the arms. Likha bhi hua hai. Okay? So Yugantar was a party also, and Yugantar was a magazine also, right? So their most important magazine was Yugantar, edited by B.K. Ghosh. B.K. Ghosh was brother of Aurobindo Ghosh, right? And Bhupendranath Datta. Another magazine of theirs was Sandhya Patrika, edited by Brahmabandha Upadhyay. So fine, just simply read through it because in prelims recognition will be required. Recall can be of in mains of important leaders like Sachin Sanyal, Rash Bihari Bose, right? B.K. Ghosh, aisa, Pulin Bihari Das. Alipur bomb case. So here there was a judge. His name was he was a magistrate Kingsford, right? So here Prafulla Chaki and Khudiram Bose, right? So he used to give very harsh judgments to the leaders during the Swadeshi movement. So therefore a bomb was thrown, but sadly two innocent British women they were killed, right? And Prafulla Chaki, some people they say he was shot dead, some people say that he ate cyanide, and Khudiram Bose was later hanged. Right? They showed no remorse. Khudiram Bose showed no remorse. Right? When the judge asked who killed him, मैंने मारा. ठीक, तेरा भी plan था. Right? Why? Because you should not appear to be in fear. Right? So therefore, that is the idea. So ऐसा Bal Gangadhar Tilak wrote an article called "Arrival of Bomb," right? In his publication Kesari. Kesari was a Marathi, right? Whereby he said that I do not support violence, but the Britishers they should understand that violence will be responded with violence. So arrival of bomb means first the pen came on the Indian politics. The Britishers they did not listen. Then people came out on the streets in Swadeshi movement 1905. The Britishers they did not listen, right? They did repression. So that's why now bomb has arrived in the Indian politics. So at least now listen. That is what Bal Gangadhar Tilak is trying to tell the Britishers. He is tried on the charges of sedition. For 6 years he sent to Mandalay, Burma. That is, he will arrive back in India in 1914. Right? It was Jinnah who fought his case, because at that point of time, Jinnah was secular. Later on, he will become a monster, right? But at that point of time, he was secular. He is also behind the Lucknow Pact of 1916, right? Right? So that is what is happening. ठीक है, उसमें ठीक है, तो therefore मतलब ये अलीपुर कॉन्स्पिरेसी केस, इट इज़ बेसिकली हेयर स्मॉल करेक्शन आई एम सेइंग, ये जो मैंने आपको बॉम्ब वाला एपिसोड बताया, इट वाज ऑफ मुजफ्फरपुर कॉन्स्पिरेसी केस, right? So after the Muzaffarpur conspiracy case, where Prafullo Chaki and Khudiram Bose, they were active, the Britishers, they wanted to know that how these teenagers are able to do these things. So who is the mastermind? So in the Alipur conspiracy case, no one was killed, but in a locality, Maniktola locality, Murari Pukur Road, right, there a house was raided by the Britishers, and there these revolutionaries, masterminds, they were arrested, right, with whatever incriminating material, etc. And Aurobindo Ghosh was one, right? So in the Alipur Muzaffarpur conspiracy case, Prafullo Chaki, Khudiram Bose, Magistrate Kingsford. Alipur conspiracy case, no violence took place, just that masterminds of whatever revolutionary activity was taking place, they were to be arrested. And Aurobindo Ghosh was supported by, in the court, C.R. Das, the political mentor of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, fought his case, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. C.R. Das. He was later acquitted due to lack of evidence. Lack of evidence, ये था that Bipin Chandra Pal refused to be witness. Initially because of coercion, he had agreed, but later on he refused, right? And he retired from active politics. I disagree with this particular statement, right? Because books are such, तो fine, तो हमारा content भी कुछ वैसी books से बनता है. Reality is, he did not retire from active politics like this. After that, he began a magazine called Karma Yogini, and he again started writing very aggressive editorials against the Britishers. Then Bal Gangadhar Tilak is being repressed, plus Lala Lajpat Rai is being forced to go abroad, so therefore he did not want to get arrested, so therefore he went to Pondicherry, or he escaped to Pondicherry. There, because the Indian national movement is coming down, so therefore there he started pursuing spiritualism, but that spiritualism he was pursuing even earlier. He had had Swami Vivekananda like Brahman experience even earlier, right? So therefore then, you know, he became totally dedicated to the spirituality, because the Indian national movement was down. Reading such sentences makes us feel that Aurobindo डर गए, Aurobindo डरे नहीं, right? कि you know evidence नहीं था, and as part of some deal he is retiring from active politics. No, he is not retiring from active politics like that. Karma Yogini is a magazine, and recently Government of India also celebrated Aurobindo's anniversary. Aurobindo's birthday, I think it comes on 15th of August, right? Our Independence Day, right? The Government of India celebrated. So therefore Karma Yogini and other aspects. So in PT 365, those content, additional content, it is given in Aurobindo. So therefore you should make a special note of it, right? In Maharashtra, initially it was Mitra Mela, which was founded by Savarkar brothers. Later on it was renamed as Abhinav Bharat in Pune. Why it was renamed as Abhinav Bharat? Because Young Italy was an organization which was started by Mazzini in 1830s. So therefore, and Veer Savarkar was greatly inspired by Mazzini. So therefore, if that was Young Italy, then we should have Young India. Young is Abhinav, India is Bharat, right? So therefore, Abhinav Bharat. So therefore, it was renaming and not Aisa. Similarly, its branch was set up in London later, right? So Mitra Mela merged with Abhinav Bharat, or they became one organization similar to Mazzini's Young Italy. He wrote Mazzini Charitra also, right, in Marathi, so that the people of India, they get to know about the thought process of Mazzini, right? So violent overthrow, Veer Savarkar, Vinayak Savarkar and Ganesh Savarkar, right? Veer Savarkar used to write, patriotic songs for 1893 Ganpati festival and 1896 Shivaji festival of Balagangadhar Tilak. So therefore, in the movie Savarkar also it is shown that very good relationship was there between Balagangadhar Tilak and the Savarkar brothers, right? So Savarkar is also referred to as Swatantra Veer Savarkar, right? Or Bada Babu founded a secret society called Mitra Mela, later on renamed as Abhinav Bharat. Right, involved in the formation of Hindu Mahasabha, which was started by Madan Mohan Malviya ji in 1915 के आसपास. Books Mazzini Charitra, right? Hindutva, who is a Hindu? History of the War of Independence. War of Independence for Swadharma and Swaraj, right? So therefore that is what he is writing. Nasik conspiracy case. So when Savarkar was abroad, so therefore he transported guns in books, right? One of those guns was used by Kanhere, Lakshman Kanhere, in assassination of district magistrate Jackson, जिसका बना दिया Michael Jackson, ठीक? And Mr. Jackson was killed, and later on the inquiry resulted in this thing, right? Savarkar himself came to India. He did not know that he will be sent to Kalapani, right? So fine, he he arrived in London, and from there he was arrested and he was deported to India, then Kalapani, and 2 life imprisonments were given to him in this Nasik conspiracy case, right? So therefore that is what is happening, right? So fine. In Delhi conspiracy case, which I have already talked about, what was the reason for this case? In 1911, the Britishers, they annulled the partition of Bengal. So, but they wanted to hurt the political participation of Bengal in Indian national movement. So therefore, now they shifted the capital from Calcutta to Delhi. Why? Because when you are a capital, then your leaders, they have special importance. For example, we are not as much aware about political parties of Pondicherry as much we are aware about the political parties of Delhi. What is so special about Delhi? It is the seat of government, right? So therefore, they changed the seat of government from Calcutta to Delhi, and therefore, because their intention was to hurt the Indian national movement, so therefore Delhi conspiracy case took place in 1912. यहाँ पे चांदनी चौक, in balcony, Rash Bihari Bose, right, with bomb, and on elephant, Mr. Hardinge, right? So therefore bomb was thrown, but unluckily he survived, right? So anyways, a homemade bomb was thrown into the viceroy's elephant carriage during a ceremonial procession in Delhi. The occasion was a transfer of British capital from Calcutta to Delhi, right? And he's the senior most person in India. Viceroy is the senior most person, right? So that means even that person is not safe. Look at the courage of Rash Bihari Bose, right? This inspired the NRIs in US and Canada. Lala Hardayal, who set up Gadar, was inspired especially by this. Why? Because when we are in US, so when we would talk to the people of US, they'll be like, we fought American War of Independence. Right? So therefore, we would be feeling, where is our war of independence? So when this happened, so therefore the imaginations of the NRIs in US and Canada, it got bolstered like anything. So therefore, this is linked with the Gadar movement. This triggered the Gadar movement in US and Canada by the Punjabi NRIs. Okay? So therefore, that is the importance of this. Right? So that is what is there. In Punjab, for example, so Bhagat Singh के बारे में तो हमने डिस्कस कर ही लिया है. दैट इज 1928 हिंदुस्तान सोशलिस्ट रिपब्लिकन आर्मी, लाहौर कॉन्स्पिरेसी केस, राइट. एंड ठीक है, तो व्हेन सो ही बिलीव्ड, he also set up certain organization. His demand to the youth of India was not that you die for the country. That is your personal call. His demand to the youth of India was that at least join the Indian national movement, at least join the Indian National Congress, right? So therefore he started Punjab Naujawan Bharat Sabha. Right, so therefore that he basically wanted the youth to join active politics. So therefore he believed in power of pen. He was a voracious reader, right? When he was arrested, while he was in jail, he fought for human rights, right? Your Jatin Das died on 64th day of the fast. He was actually killed. He was actually murdered, right? Even on 64th day of the fast, he was not willing to have food, so therefore he was being forced fed, and therefore lungs got jammed, and therefore it was a murder. The books, they simply say that he died on the 64th day of the fast as if he died of hunger. No, he was force fed, right? So if you fast for 3 days, right, after that you're like, imagine the courage and the will of that person that even on the 64th day of the fast, he is to be force fed. So therefore that was the spirit of nationalism among these revolutionaries. Bhagat Singh converted the whole jail into library, which is a proof that he wanted the revolutionaries to be people of book. He wanted youth to be intellectual, right? So therefore he, he gave this intellectual thing that we are not, he said, I have acted like a terrorist, but I am not a terrorist, right? So he was a revolutionary, right? He asked the Britishers to shoot him rather than hang him, because he is not a criminal who should be hanged. Right? So therefore these kind of things are there. In fact, some books they say that the relationship between Netaji Bose and Mahatma Gandhi also became divergent on the issue of death sentence. Right? So therefore, so ऐसा ठीक है. तो when Karachi special session took place after Gandhi Irwin Pact of 1931, so there Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose ensured that a tribute is given by Congress to the revolutionaries. right? So therefore, that there was a time when Bhagat Singh was more popular than any other leader in India around this point of time. He died at a very young age. Gadar movement. So Gadar movement, there the NRIs came to India to remove the hand pump. Like Sunny Deol went to Pakistan to remove the hand pump. Here NRIs came to India to remove the hand pump, right? The trigger was the Delhi conspiracy case. Inspiration was also from the Swadeshi revolutionaries from 1907 to 1911. Initially, they started magazine, for example, Gadar. Some other newspapers were also there, Gurmukhi newspaper and other things, whereby broadly what they said. First of all, they talked about Hindu-Muslim Sikh unity. Second, they wanted repeat of 1857 revolt. Therefore, in the Gadar magazine, they published the 1857 War of Independence, book written by Savarkar in parts. Then they also published poems. Why? Because poems, they have the tendency to raise the emotions like anything. So the name of the poems was Gadar Di Gunj, right? Lala Hardyal, he was a professor, right? Professor, Surya Sen teacher, Aurobindo, educationist, right? So therefore, he was a professor of Sanskrit, right? Professor of philosophy, right? In US. So therefore, he took the leadership, right? So Gadar Di Gunj. On the front page of the Gadar, there used to be Angrezi Raj Ka Kacha Chitta, right? That is an expose on the British rule, which had summary of all the criticism done of the British by moderates, by extremists, by revolutionaries, right? And at the end, the call was there to the Indians that 31 crore Indians should overthrow these 1.5 lakh Britishers from India, and we should repeat 1857 revolt, right? So therefore, what is their contribution? They made the NRI community really, really nationalistic by raising awareness, right? They could do so because they were living in a free country, US, where freedom of speech and expression, it is there, right? Another trigger was Kaha Gota Maru incident, Koma Gata Maru incident, right? Koma Gata Maru, right? Koma Gata Maru was ship, right? So therefore, this is how you can remember. So in Hindi, you say, when you jump into water, so therefore you say Pani mein Gota Mara, तो Koma Gota Maru, ठीक है, right? So it was a ship which was traveling from Singapore to Canada, Vancouver in Canada, and well, there is a passion in Punjab. Earlier, the passion used to be earlier Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. After that, somewhere Canada got added, right, on the way, right? So Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, and go to Canada. So therefore, Canada passion, US passion. So therefore, because huge amount of land is available in Canada and US, so therefore the desire was that we can become big landowners, right? So ultimately, it is about Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So the Britishers, they did not want Indians to go to US and Canada because there was freedom of speech and expression, and there was Swaraj in Canada, self-government on the lines of Australia and Canada. So they did not want the Indians to get exposed to ideas of democracy, etc. So therefore they brought a rule whereby they said that only those Indians will be allowed to enter Canada who make a direct journey from India to Canada. Right? अब हम भी चालू थे. So therefore first we went from India to Singapore, and from Singapore we went to Canada, right? There, like gateway of India is there, so imagine hypothetically some gateway of Canada is there, right? On this side of the gateway, we are there, right? About to enter on this side, our relatives are there with malas, etc., right? And just now we are stopped, right? So therefore, then we are sent back. That also where? To Baj near Calcutta. अब वहाँ से पंजाब भी जाना है. Right? The journey was also very, very tough. So therefore, this increased anger among those who are my relatives in Canada. Right? This increased anger among the NRIs. This increased anger in India. So therefore, and next trigger was beginning of the World War I. So therefore, because most of the British Indian Army will be fighting in Europe, so it is the right opportunity to repeat 1857 revolt in India. Right? So therefore these NRIs, they decided to come back to India. They got in touch with Bengal revolutionaries. Raj Bihari Bose contacted the military because of Peel Commission set up after 1857 revolt. The sepoys, they were living in barracks untouched by the modern Indian national movement. So therefore very weak response came from the sepoys. Right? That's why the Sepoy mutiny failed. And Udasi Sikh Mahants, because Punjab society was deeply religious, and Udasi Sikh Mahants who were corrupt, they were the temple priests, Gurdwara priests, they were pro-British. They asked the people of Punjab to not follow the Gadarites. Therefore, the civil rebellion could also not take place. And then, because of the World War, emergency was applied. Through which act? Defense of India Act. So, Defense of India Act 1915, World War II, Defense of India Act 1939. So always notice patterns, right? Britishers always function with the help of law, right? Because they believe in rule of law, right? So if the Britishers, they want to shoot you, first they'll bring a law that they can shoot you, right? So emergency is Defense of India Act, right? Sometimes the book mentions rules also. Why? Rules are made under the act, right? So Defense of India rules were also there, and Defense of India Act was also there, which gave draconian powers, emergency-like powers. No trial is required. Without trial, hang. So therefore, a whole generation of deeply secular nationalist Indians was lost by us in this Gadar movement, right? So ऐसा. So therefore, these are all right. So these are the different newspaper. Free Hindustan newspaper by Taraknath, Circular Azaadi by Ramnath Puri, right? So all of these are the different factual information, right? The primary was the Gadar magazine by Lala Hardayal, right? So therefore, that is what is there. Kahan Gota Maru incident, right? Komagata Maru, right? So therefore, that is what is happening. Then we have discussed HRA, Hindustan Republican Army, right? Ram Prasad Bismil, Jogesh Chandra Chatterjee, Sachin Sanyal, they are the founders. They did Kakori robbery case. Ashfaqullah Khan became a martyr. Ram Prasad Bismil was also hanged. He also became a martyr. And after that, they were brought down. Their goal was to set up a United States of India. Then it was revived by Chandrasekhar Azad and Bhagat Singh. So therefore, bomb in CLA case they are doing. Plus, they are doing this Lahore conspiracy case, right? Lahore conspiracy case. Right, so therefore Jatin Das became the first martyr on 64th day of his fast. All of this information it is there. Kakori robbery case, right? Cash was looted, right? So fine. Then you have revolutionary terrorism in Bengal or revolutionaries of Bengal. So therefore, for example, always remember that the extremists, they always friends with the revolutionaries. So C.R. Das, Bipin Chandpal, so they always had good ties with the revolutionaries. Now, C.R. Das ji died in 1925, right? So recently I went to Darjeeling, so there is a lane where it is written here, Chitranjan Das, the place where Chitranjan Das died. So he died in Darjeeling, right? I came to know. Anyways, so after C.R. Das, the revolutionaries, they got divided into two factions. One faction was led by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Second faction was led by J.M. Sen Gupta, right? So therefore, ऐसा. So one led by J.M. Sen Gupta. Anushilan group supported him. Yugantar supported Netaji Bose, right? So fine. Uske अलावा Gopinath Saha tried to kill the Calcutta police commissioner. So that is one incident which is taking place. Then because of this particular case, many were arrested, including Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. In fact, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose spent most of the time in jails only. Chittagong Armory Raid, 1930-33, first group action, right? Khele Hum Ji Jaan Se is a movie with Surya Sen being played by Abhishek Bachchan. So, anyways, there is a photograph of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and Surya Sen just before start of this. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, very danger person, right? Anything which happens, right here, there, Netaji Bose will always be present, right? Bose is always dangerous. Bose के तो speakers भी खतरनाक होते हैं. हमने वही लगा रखे हैं, ठीक? So ठीक है था. तो Surya Sen decided to organize an armed rebellion. Plan to occupy two main armories in Chittagong. Plan was to cut off Chittagong by cutting off railway lines, telegraph lines, right? So ऐसा. Obviously they knew that they are going to be martyrs, right? They are not stupid, they know, right? But they are trying to still put up a resistance, right? So raid was done. Ultimately Surya Sen was hanged, right? Preeti Lata Wadedar, right? She was also one of them. Then Suniti Chaudhary, you know, she got life imprisonment. Preeti Lata Wadedar, I think she became martyr, right? So ऐसा all of these things they are present, right? So women personalities, right? So for example, Madam Bikaji Kama, right? So in Delhi there is a place also, Bikaji Kama. So basically she was a Parsi. She was married to a pro-British lawyer, right? She was so nationalist that this led to divorce, right? After that there was plague in 1890s. For example, Bal Gangadhar Tilak did plague relief. है ना? Remember that in 1890s, this thing, your Chapekar brothers killed the plague commissioner Rand, right? Why he was killed? Because he was adopting very coercive methods, right? So people were very worried. Like for example, coronavirus happened. So initially everyone was in panic mode, right? We used to get in our balconies, right? So ambulance will be coming, two, right? And we'll all be watching that in that house corona is there, right? Then the police will be initially, because initially everyone was, you know, not sure what is happening, right? So therefore people, they will be as if bomb squad has come for detonating, for not detonating, for preventing detonation of nuclear bomb, right? So therefore as outside the house we also used to paste, you know, is ghar mein corona hai, right? So therefore ऐसा corona हो गया, ठीक है, this kind of scenario. तो मतलब a lot of anxiety was there, right? And in initial it is natural. So there also when plague fell, so spread. So therefore a lot of anxiety was there among the people, right? And then he adopted very coercive measures. So he'll visit a house, his officers will visit a house, those people are already under a disease, and then he'll beat them up. Why? To take them to hospital. Right? So he was very coercive. So therefore, revenge was taken by Chapekar brothers, right? And he was a hated plague commissioner, and he was assassinated. Later on, Chapekar brothers, they were arrested because of some informers, but those informers were also taken care of by us later, right? So anyways, so therefore she also jumped in to do relief like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and others. So, and she also caught the plague. After that she went to Britain for treatment, but she did not come back ever, right? There she got in touch with the revolutionaries like Shamji Kishan Verma, London wale. Dada Bhai Naroji is not a revolutionary, he is a conservative and a moderate, right? But there she stayed, she became part of revolutionary group, right? And she coordinated the revolutionaries like Savarkar, etc. She created the Paris Indian Society, right, with the help of S.R. Rana and M.B. Godrej. Then the flag, which was designed by the revolutionaries, she was the one who unfurled. There was a socialist conference which was taking place, and she made everyone stand up, right, and salute to the Indian flag, right? So therefore this flag, it represented all the religions of India. So therefore this is how the revolutionaries, they were functioning, right? So therefore that is how it is. Baki rest of the things we'll discuss, you know, revolutionaries ke alawa. Jo next class we'll be discussing, you know, a very super interesting topic called social reforms. Very deeply interesting topic, right? So we'll begin with that. So God bless you. Take care. Bye bye.